What is going on, guys? We are live on YouTube. We are live on TikTok. I know we're starting a little late. YouTube live stream. I see there's 18 of us already in here. Let's go. Love to see that. I am in Arizona right now. So I'm working 3 hours behind normal Eastern time today. The time zone has been very, very weird to adjust to. But guys, we have football on our television screens in under 3 hours. I can not wait. Yeah, we're outside. This is going to be a great week 3. Yarsman, thanks for tuning in, guys. We have so much to talk about. So many good games happening on our television screens very, very soon. There's going to be a lot of good questions today, a lot of late news in the week. A lot of different guys out. We got to update you on all of the news as well, because the news is going to have a very, very big impact this week. And it feels like this is honestly the turning point in the season. We're in week 3 now, and a lot of teams are picking up a lot of injuries. And I think understanding the impact of the different injuries is one of the most important things in fantasy football this time of year. So we're going to talk about all the injuries. There's a lot to get through. But the biggest one is Dalvin Cook, unlikely to play against the Seattle Seahawks. Dalvin Cook said his one goal heading into this season was to play all 17 games, but we all knew that was going to be difficult for a guy like Dalvin Cook who gets the workload that he gets. So he's out this week. That makes Alexander Madison a running back 1 in fantasy football this week. I'm not going to sleep on Alexander Madison. He could potentially see 20 touches in this game. We're going to get to a lot of the start-sit questions. We are live on TikTok and YouTube right now. Link is in the bio if you're watching on the TikTok stream. We're going to go game by game. I'm going to talk about what I'm expecting in that game. I have my top 10 wide receivers on the YouTube stream at the bottom, top 10 quarterbacks, running backs, tight ends coming up as well. I'm seeing already a lot of questions. I was expecting to see a lot of these guys in these questions. Madison versus Trey Sermon. And I think this is a really interesting one this week. Personally, I would go with Alexander Madison. Trey Sermon, I actually am starting him in one league this week. Elijah Mitchell's trending towards out. I don't think that's been confirmed yet. In the chat, you can let me know if that's been confirmed. I'm pretty sure it has not. But it seems like he's trending towards being out. Trey Sermon really has no competition for touches this week, but we also know Kyle Shanahan doesn't like to go with a workhorse running back approach. So he probably won't see more than 15 touches. I think Alexander Madison has a chance. His ceiling, Alexander Madison's ceiling this week, at least 20 touches in that game. And that's also supposed to be a potentially high-scoring game against the Seattle Seahawks. So I'm really excited for that game. I would go with Alexander Madison over Sony Michelle, though. I would. I would also go with Trey Sermon over Sony Michelle. I see Jonathan in the YouTube chat. Trey Sermon or Sony Michelle. Sony Michelle is going to get the start for the Rams this week, but I'm nervous about it. I'm nervous about Sony Michelle in what I expect to be a really, really pass-heavy game. I think Sony Michelle and Trey Sermon, I think Alexander Madison's a tier above both those guys. I think Trey Sermon and Sony Michelle, they're going to need a touchdown. If they don't score a touchdown, they're probably scoring less than 10 fantasy points. This is what the type of player we're dealing with this week. I think Trey Sermon has the better chance at a touchdown. I like that rushing offense more, and I expect the Rams to be extremely pass-heavy. They've been one of the most pass-heavy teams in the league so far this season. Juju, Pittman, or Deebo Samuel. All right, guys, we've established a bunch of rules on this live stream already. We've already established a bunch of rules. One of them is you're not allowed to bench Allen Robinson. By the way, we got to talk about Justin Fields. I cannot wait to watch Justin Fields this week. It might be the thing I'm most excited for in week 3 is to watch Justin Fields start a full game in a very difficult matchup against the Browns. Justin Fields is going to ball out, guys. I'm happy to start Justin Fields this week. I think he's going to be a top 15 quarterback in fantasy football right away. He has the rushing floor, but he has a massive ceiling too. So he's really not that risky. Justin Fields is going to rush for at least 50 yards today. He has 99th percentile speed, and the Browns are probably going to get a lead in this game. So I don't know why you wouldn't like Justin Fields. I'm starting Justin Fields in my Draftkings lineup this week. He's my favorite cash game quarterback this week. I think if you're not going with Justin Fields, it's almost worth paying up for Kyla Murray, Josh Allen, even this week. Lamar Jackson, too. I mean, Lamar Jackson, again, third straight season now, clearly the best rushing quarterback that the league has ever seen. He has a chance to rush for 100 yards in every game. He's actually like a top 12 running back in fantasy football without his passing stats. Think about how crazy that is for Lamar Jackson. The dude cannot be stopped. But if you're playing on DraftKings this week, Justin Fields offers very similar rushing upside, but for a fraction of the cost. So I like Justin Fields a lot this week. What's the player prop? Guys, when we get to 300 likes on the YouTube live stream, I will be giving out a free player prop. We are pretty good so far to start the season with the free player props. We're 2 out of 3. We missed Ryan Tannehill over 1.5 passing touchdowns in week 1 in somehow a game against the Cardinals that he ended up rushing a touchdown. He played horrible in that game. The Titans are really off to a shaky start offensively, and their defense is really going to be average or below average this season. The Titans offense, there's a lot of hype coming into this season. We've already seen Derrick Henry have a massive game, but Julio Jones finally looked good last week. I think we see a big A.J. Brown game today as well. But when we get to 300 likes on the YouTube live stream, guys, smash the like button, smash the subscribe button. We're live on YouTube and TikTok right now, by the way. Link to the YouTube streams just in the TikTok bio, or just look up WalterPicks on YouTube. You can see my top 10 running backs, quarterbacks, wide receivers, tight ends on the YouTube live stream. I can't show that on TikTok. Doesn't have that feature. You can also see my favorite picks against the spread on the YouTube live stream. I'll be talking through those, but I want to get back to some of the questions because I'm seeing a lot of good questions in the chat. Dalvin Cook, he is out today, guys. That makes Alexander Madison a top 12 running back option. All right, Diggs or Kupp in DFS? Yeah, I mean, Cooper Kupp, guys, just on an absolute tear. Top 2 in fantasy points per game so far through the first 2 weeks. He looks like the preferred target for Matthew Stafford, and he's probably going to have another huge day. Honestly, I like Stephon Diggs a little bit more. I think Stephon Diggs still has the higher ceiling, and I expect Josh Allen to bounce back very soon. As soon as this week. Like, I will not be surprised, guys, if Josh Allen throws for 300 yards, 3 total touchdowns, like very, very well within Josh Allen's range of outcomes still. He's pushing the ball down the field, which is exactly what you want Josh Allen to do. So while he has been off to a pretty slow start, he also has been in relatively difficult matchups. He also gets a much easier schedule after this week. But I'm very excited for that Bills game as well. I do expect Josh Allen to have a big bounce back day. Honestly, one of the things that surprised me the most, though, when looking through some of the stats through the first 2 weeks, you look at Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence is pushing the ball down the field, actually far more than I expected when looking at the data. He's basically pushing the ball downfield the 4th most in the NFL. He's the 4th most air yards. The Jaguars are just going to get destroyed this week, too. Kyla Murray in the Cardinals, they're 7.5-point favorites. It's actually my favorite pick against the spread this week. I'm going to be picking against the Jaguars all season, so get used to it, guys. But I like Kyla Murray to just destroy this really, really underperforming Jaguars defense with very little talent on the defensive side. But Trevor Lawrence is a very interesting play in fantasy this week, too. He could easily throw for 300 yards and still lose by 20-plus points. That's what it looks like this Jaguars team is going to be like this season. All right, I'm seeing some good quarterback questions. Let me pull up my top 10 quarterbacks on the YouTube live stream. My top 10 quarterbacks, I'll talk through them really quick for everyone listening on the TikTok live stream. I think, as always, and I've said this every week so far, and it hasn't been true for every guy every week, but I think overall it's been a good approach still so far this season. You have to start the guys that you picked early: Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen. You can't bench them. You drafted them too early in your fantasy league to bench those quarterbacks. They still have the rushing and passing ceiling. So you got to go with all those guys. That's my top 4. Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen. I think you could argue a lot of different guys as number 1 this week. I really wanted to put Kyler Murray there, but Lamar Jackson's just putting the team on his back this season, and he's in a great matchup against the Lions. He's going to rush for over 100 yards in this game. With all the injuries that the Ravens have, I'm actually taking the Lions against the spread, but the Ravens offense is going to generate points with Lamar Jackson. It's literally all they need. So after those guys, though, Russell Wilson comes in at number 5. He's been way too hot to sit. And by the way, I think I missed a question about Deebo Samuel earlier. I was talking about the rules we have. There's one new rule this week. You have to start Deebo Samuel till he cools down. You can't be benching Deebo Samuel. The streak that Deebo Samuel is on, he cannot be sitting on your bench in fantasy football this week. You're just not allowed to do it. He's been too good. He is number 3 in fantasy points through the first 2 weeks. He has the most receiving yards in the NFL. He almost has 300 receiving yards through the first 2 games. And he's seeing volume. And we know Brandon Ayuka, the bazooka, looms in the background. And you definitely can't start Brandon Ayuk this week either. Just wait with Brandon Ayuk. We said this about Trey Sermon too. This is a good week to start Trey Sermon now. But Brandon Ayuk You just can't start. He's seeing a 4% target share, 4%. That is very, very bad. So you can't trust him until we see a bigger workload for Brandon Ayuk. Tom Brady or Josh Allen? Yeah, I'm going Josh Allen in that option. I think you have to start Lamar Jackson, Kyla Murray, Patrick Mahomes, and Josh Allen. I know Josh Allen is probably the toughest of those guys to start because he's been off to a slow start, but I promise you the ceiling is there for Josh Allen. You don't want to be benching Josh Allen when he finishes as a top 3 quarterback in week 3, and that's well within his range of outcomes this week. Lamar Jackson or Kyler Murray? I was just talking about this one. I think they're the top 2 quarterbacks this week. So I feel like most teams don't have to make a Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray decision. I don't know how you ended up with both those guys unless it's a super flex league, but I would go Lamar Jackson. I think the floor for Lamar Jackson is 15 fantasy points with his rushing volume. Again, Lamar Jackson is a top 12 running back in fantasy football. You remove his quarterback stats, and he's a top 12 running back. It's just insane rushing production from the greatest rushing quarterback of all time. Do I trade for CEH? Yeah, I've been telling people you got to trade for Clyde Edwards Lair, and I'm nervous. Honestly, I know that's a risky move, but you have to also understand in fantasy football, the goal is to win the league. That's really it. There's only one goal in your fantasy football league, that is to win. And it starts with a win in week 3, but it also starts with getting aggressive in trades and trying to get players with league winning upside. And that's what Clyde Edwards-Helaire has. That's why it's what he's had since he entered the NFL. It's because he's on the Chiefs. He's looked very average. I went back, by the way, I go back and rewatch every single game every single week. And I went back and watched the Chiefs game, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire looks like, at best, an average running back. He really does. He has not excelled at anything so far, but he's still on the Chiefs, and the Chiefs are going to be in some massive high-scoring games. There's going to be games where Clyde Edwards-Helaire scores multiple touchdowns, and he has not had those yet. He hasn't scored a touchdown this season, and when you look deeper into the Clyde Edwards-Helaire thing, he's actually losing very valuable touches to Darrell Williams around the goal line, but other than that, he's actually seeing 85% of the touches, almost 86% of the touches in the Chiefs' backfield. That's the 3rd highest rate in the NFL, on the best team in the NFL, in terms of the offensive side of the ball, at least. The Chiefs' defense, I actually am a little nervous about the Chiefs' defense being a really big weakness for the Chiefs this season. It's why I think the Chargers are going to have a massive day today. I'm all in on Austin Eckler, Justin Herbert, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. I think you have to start all those guys. By the way, my biggest miss from week 2, and I'm going to be very transparent about misses and hits on my shows. Mike Williams. I mean, I really was overthinking the Trevon Diggs thing in week 2. Mike Williams is playing a really valuable role in a very good passing attack. Mike Williams is a wide receiver 2 with wide receiver 1 upside every week moving forward until further notice. So you got to start Mike Williams. That was a big miss on my end last week. So that Chargers-Cowboys game definitely didn't go as scoring as I expected. There was a little less scoring last week than I expected in that game. Mike Davis or Miles Sanders? Mike Davis is another tough one for me this week. I know you want to start Mike Davis. He actually has decent volume. When you look at the running back landscape right now, Mike Davis is actually seeing top 15 volume. That's why you drafted him, right? But Cordero Patterson's also very much involved, and he could easily steal touchdowns, and he's also stealing valuable targets. All that being said, Mike Davis is still number 6 in the league in terms of weighted opportunities. That's just targets and carries, and it also takes into account red zone carries. Weighted opportunities is something I look at very closely, and Mike Davis is number 6 in that metric. So I would probably lean him. there. DeAndre Swift or Rondale Moore. Oh, God, I'm so hyped about the Rondale Moore ascension. Rondale Moore, they're using him perfectly. They really are. I think it's a really close one, but I want to start Rondale Moore against the Jaguars. The Jaguars are so bad. The Cardinals are going to put up a lot of points, and it's very clear that Rondale Moore, he is getting schemed the ball. There's several plays in both of the first 2 games where the play design was basically a rushing attempt for Rondale Moore. They were giving the ball to Rondale Moore on the play, and they're giving it to him close to the line of scrimmage. They're putting the ball in his hands, and they're just letting him go to work. It's the exact type of role he had at Purdue. He's so dynamic with the ball in his hands. He's just such a quick guy once he has the ball. So I like Rondale Moore a lot. The Jaguars are really, I think, a bottom 3 secondary in the NFL. All right, Pittman, Rondale, or Fuller. Yeah, Will Fuller returned this week. Very excited to see Will Fuller out there again. And he is a guy that was really slept on before last season. And I think he could be getting slept on again. He could be a really good addition for the Miami Dolphins, who are going to need the help. Tua is out this week. Jacoby Brissett in, so I'm certainly not going to be confident about the Dolphins with Jacoby Brissett as the starter. But you gotta like the Will Fuller return to at least boost that passing attack a little once Tua returns. But I would not be starting him this week. Can you show your picks against the spread? Yeah, let me pull up the picks against the spread, and let's talk through against these picks against the spread really quickly. Let me get to, I promise I'm going to get to some of the questions that I can. And I got the picks up against the spread on the YouTube live. We're live on TikTok and YouTube right now. The link is in the TikTok bio. And when we get to 300 likes on the YouTube live stream, I'll also be giving out another free player prop. We're 2 out of 3 this season, a little over 60% across all the picks in the WalterPicks app so far this season. We got another 7 props today. I'm feeling very good about them. And I want to get to this last question. Mike, thanks for being a subscriber in the WalterPicks app, man. Do appreciate it. This is the number one way you can support me, Mike. So seriously, thank you so much. Check out the WalterPicks app in the iOS app store if you haven't yet. Getting to this question, though, Pittman, Rondo Moore, Damien Harris. I'm actually a little nervous about Damien Harris this week. I think Damien Harris is another touchdown-dependent running back this week. And the Saints have a historically, over the last 3 years, good run defense. I mean, they haven't been as good to start the season, but they've also gone up against very good running backs. They've gone up against Christian McCaffrey and Aaron Jones. So I think I'm nervous about Damien Harris. Honestly, I would go with Rondo Moore out of these 3. I think Rondo Moore has the highest ceiling, and he honestly has a pretty good floor because he's going to touch the ball minimum 5 times. Again, against a very bad Jaguars defense. I think I would go with Rondo Moore. Appreciate the question, though. All right, I want to talk a little bit about some of these picks against the spread. I'm 54%, by the way, against the spread so far this season. Honestly, that's better than I would have expected. I do not bet against the spread. I really don't. But I like talking about them, and I think it adds context to what we can expect in each game. So I will touch on each of them. And I do enjoy picking the game. So I'll continue to do this. I'm 54%. I'm actually 3 out of 4 on my locks, though. My locks are 3 out of 4. I have 2 locks today against the spread. The first game, the Buffalo Bills, 7-point favorites against Washington. I don't feel great about this game in terms of the spread. I think it's going to be really close in terms of a 7-point spread. I do expect the Bills to win. But honestly, what I'm betting on here for the Buffalo Bills in this week is a Josh Allen bounce back game. Washington really has not been that great against on defense. They really have been a disappointment. We just saw Daniel Jones have what was really a good game. The Giants should have won that game against Washington, and they let me pull up the stats here. Justin Herbert threw for 337 yards against them in week 1. I mean, Josh Allen could very easily do what Justin Herbert did in week 1, 337 yards. And then we see Daniel Jones, he threw for 250. He also ran for 95. I think that the Bills and Josh Allen are going to do very well this week. So I'm taking them at 7 points is a lot. I don't like 7 points, but I do like the Bills to win this game. In the next game, the Bears, Justin Fields. Of course, I'm going to be betting on Justin Fields in his first ever game. I would advise you not to bet against Justin Fields this week. And whatever you're doing, DraftKings, FanDuel, betting on the games, don't bet against Justin Fields. Justin Fields was one of the most overlooked prospects in this draft class. He really should have been a top 5 pick. He had all of the talent to be a top 5 pick, very similar attributes to Trey Lance. He has 99th percentile speed. He's willing to push the ball down the field. He will take shots down the field, and he's an accurate deep passer. Justin Fields looks like a young Russell Wilson. I'm not saying he is Russell Wilson. He looks like a young Russell Wilson. And while he might not play well this game, and he could throw multiple interceptions, it's the rushing floor that you got to bet on. But the Bears, 7.5 points against the Browns. I'm going with the Bears. Again, I think Justin Fields can keep this game closer than the public thinks. And that's really what I'm betting on in this Bears game. Though the Browns have been just dominant on the ground in the first couple of games. You got to fire up Nick Chubb with confidence again this week. Nick Chubb, so far, it doesn't really matter. He hasn't been involved as a receiver because he's just so efficient as a runner. And that's exactly why you drafted him. All right, next game, Lions +8 versus the Ravens. 8's just a lot for me. And the Ravens have a lot of injuries. They have the most injuries in the league by far. I don't know what is the deal with the grass in Baltimore. They got to get that checked out. It's terrible. It's the worst part of sports is the injuries. But the Ravens have a lot of them. And I'm not going to bet against Lamar Jackson very often, but 8 points is a lot. And the Lions have actually surprised me. They have been better than I expected. So have the Texans so far this season. So I'm going 8 points is a lot to me. And I think that the Lions are going to slow this game down considerably. They're going to run the ball. It's going to be a lot of short. DeAndre Swift, TJ Hawkinson, Jamal Williams targets. The whole offense just funnels through those guys. After this game, though, we're getting to my first lock of the day. And I feel like I'm taking a risk here by locking in anything next to Ryan Tannehill's name after that week 1 and how bad the Titans offensive line has been. The Titans offensive line is a huge concern. It really is. They have drastically fallen off from where they were last season, especially in the pass blocking. And that's the big concern for the Titans. But you look at the other side of the ball today, and it's Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz on 2 sprained ankles. I played sports my entire youth. I sprained my ankle dozens of times. I've never, ever seen someone sprain both ankles before. And you just got to question what the mobility is going to be like for Carson Wentz. And when Carson Wentz, and I know he's had a lot of ups and downs in his career, but you go back and you watch his best games, he is mobile in those games. So I'm very nervous about Carson Wentz. And honestly, the Colts are also dealing with a worse offensive line situation than we expected going into the season. They have all sorts of injuries on the offensive line. So I'm liking the Titans to win this game. And I think the Titans offense could potentially be unlocked in this game. We saw Julio Jones finally create some separation in week 2. I expect A.J. Brown not to have a third straight underperforming game. So I like the Titans to win this game. Carson Wentz is the big reason, though. That's really why I'm taking the Titans in this game. I just don't believe in the Colts offense right now. I have very little faith in the Colts offense. All right, next game, the Chargers versus the Chiefs. I think this might be the game I'm most excited to see today. The Chargers are 7-point underdogs. I'm taking them as 7-point underdogs against the Chiefs. I think the Chargers offense is going to put up over 30 points in this game. And I think when they do that, they're covering the spread. The Chiefs defense really has left a lot to be desired. I think it's a big weakness of the Chiefs this season is the defense. And the offense looks good, of course, as expected. That would have been very surprising if they weren't good. But Baker Mayfield, week 1, throws for 320 yards and 1 interception against the Chiefs. Week 2, Lamar Jackson puts up 37 fantasy points against the Chiefs, rushing for 107 yards. But he also had a decent passing day as well. And so Justin Herbert's probably going to go over 300 yards. His over-under today is over 300 yards. It's like 305 if you wanted to bet on Justin Herbert's passing yards this week. That's how good Justin Herbert's about to do. Like, they know Justin Herbert is going to have a big day. So I'm going with the Chargers in this game. I honestly think there's a chance the Chargers win this game. I think that the Chiefs are beatable this season if their defense continues to play this way. Next game is the Patriots -2.5 versus the Saints. I'm not feeling confident about the Patriots this week. Honestly, I'm very nervous for the game. As a Patriots fan, I was very frustrated, and I'm one of the few pessimistic Patriots fans you'll find out there, and I have been for quite some time. And I'm nervous about this game, and I was very disappointed in the week 1 loss against the Dolphins. I think that if the Patriots lose this game, they are almost guaranteed to be out of the playoff run. They can't lose this game. They can't go to 1-2 because they have the Buccaneers next week. They're going to get destroyed in that game. So they're going to be 1-3. So I'm nervous for the Patriots. I do think they're going to win the game. I'm taking them -2.5. I'm nervous that the Saints coaching staff being out last week. The Saints did not look good last week, but they also were without 7 coaches. They had backup quarterbacks doing substitution. That definitely mattered. It definitely had an impact on the game. So I'm a little nervous that the Saints are being slept on just a tiny bit for that because they did look really good week 1. Though, Jameis Winston against Bill Belichick, I mean, I'm going to go with Bill Belichick every single time in that situation. Really, like 100% of the time, I'm going to be taking Bill Belichick in that situation. So Patriots -2.5. I am nervous about Damien Harris this week, though. I'm seeing a lot of Damien Harris questions. The Saints' run defense scares me. And I don't think Damien Harris is going to be a top 20 running back this week unless he scores a touchdown. And obviously, he has a good shot at that. But if he doesn't, he's probably going to go under 10 fantasy points. That's what we're dealing with Damien Harris this season. All right, only a couple games left. Steelers -2.5 versus the Bengals. That's going to be a very exciting game. Deontay Johnson ruled out. T. Higgins ruled out. That's a big deal in that game. I expect a big Joe Mixon game. I think the Bengals get an early lead. There's going to be a lot of running from the Bengals in this game. And when you look back, you go back and watch the Bengals game so far this season, guys, and they're really trying not to pass the ball as much as they did a season ago because the pass blocking is just so bad. Their offensive line in terms of pass blocking is bottom 5 in the league. And Joe Burrow's averaging a knockdown on 25% of his dropbacks. There's a 1 in 4 chance Joe Burrow's getting knocked down on the pass. That's how bad it is for the Bengals. That's bottom 5 in the league. So I'm nervous about that for the Bengals. against the Steelers. It's why I'm taking the Steelers in this game. That being said, I think that it could be, to me, this is a complete coin toss. I want the Steelers at 2.5. I think they could easily win this game by 3 or more. But I think you got to upgrade Juju Smith-Schuster, Chase Claypool. I think you have to upgrade Tyler Boyd and Jamar Chase as well. And honestly, I think you upgrade Joe Mixon and Najee Harris too, because they're going to see more targets based on these injuries as well. And again, I think understanding injuries, I said this at the beginning of the stream, and how it's going to impact the game in the coming weeks is going to be probably the biggest edge you can get in fantasy football. You got to be paying attention to the news and how it's going to impact things on the field. The last game, though, that I want to talk about is my second lock of the day. I went Titans -5.5 versus the Colts. That's my first lock of the day. Second is the Cardinals. 7.5-point favorites against the Jaguars. Again, I'm going to be picking against the Jaguars all season long, so get used to that. But I really do think that the Jaguars could lose this game by over 20 points. I think the Jaguars could lose this game by more than 20 points. Sorry about that, TikTok Live. We're back connected. Now, all right, I want to get back to some of the questions in the chat. I know we've been talking about the spreads for a little while. All right, let me pull up my top 10 tight ends for the week. I'm seeing some tight end questions. I'm seeing a lot of Trey Sermon, Tyson Williams. I'm seeing a lot of Alexander Madison questions. I see Alexander Madison and Cordero Patterson. I would go Alexander Madison over Cordero Patterson. Good morning, Miles. Welcome to the YouTube Live, Miles. Should I start Tannehill or Cousins? Yeah, this is a tough one for me. Cousins actually sets up in a pretty good spot. Dalvin Cook is out. They're probably going to lean more in the pass. I honestly would probably go with Kirk Cousins in that situation. And I know I like the Titans today, but Ryan Tannehill, man, the offensive line really is not helping him that much. I think they're really comparable options. I would argue Kirk Cousins significantly safer than Ryan Tannehill, but Ryan Tannehill probably has the higher ceiling. What's up, bro, Ahmed? How is Ahmad? Sorry. How's it going, man? Julio Jones or Mike Evans? Antonio Brown also out this week. We have not talked about that Tampa Bay Buccaneers game at all. I don't know how I haven't touched on that yet, but Antonio Brown out, so I think you have to start Mike Evans. I think you have to start Chris Godwin. Again, the Buccaneers, we know what the Buccaneers are. They're going to throw the most deep attempts in the league again this season for the third consecutive season. It's the Bruce Arians offense. It works extremely well, and it works really well for your fantasy teams too. So get Mike Evans and Chris Godwin into your lineups with confidence this week. I do think Julio Jones has a similar ceiling to Mike Evans, but I would probably lean Mike Evans. Opinions on Ronald Jones? Yeah, get him as far away from your lineups as you possibly can. Ronald Jones was squarely on the do not draft list this season. I did not draft him anywhere because best case scenario for Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones, and we kind of knew at least one of them was probably going to end up being better than their cost because it didn't cost much. It's not like Ronald Jones cost much in your draft. So that's the good part. But the best case scenario was a first and second down roll split. Maybe you get 60% of the first and second down roll, and then you're going to lose third downs to Giovanni Bernard. So you're just going to hope one of them scores a touchdown every week. Leonard Fournette, at least, though, had a little bit more path to a receiving role. And that's what we've seen so far this season, too. And Ronald Jones really is a 0 in the receiving column. He needs a touchdown or he's going under 10 fantasy points. He's another one of those guys. He's honestly even worse than Damien Harris, Trey Sermon this week is Ronald Jones. Cortland Sutton or Deebo Samuel at flex. Again, we just established the rule. You're not allowed to bench Deebo Samuel right now. He's the third most fantasy points in the league at the wide receiver position. And he's leading the league in receiving yards. And you can't stop him after the catch. He's leading the league in yards after the catch too. He's just insane. He's like a running back with the ball. So do not bench Deebo Samuel. You're not allowed to bench him. You're not allowed to bench Deebo Samuel. But all that being said, Cortland Sutton is another guy you really do not want to bench. And good job drafting absolute baller wide receivers, by the way, because I have a feeling these are your third or fourth receivers. And Deebo Samuel is going to win fantasy leagues this season, but Cortland Sutton likely will too. Cortland Sutton has the most air yards in the league this season, and a lot of them came last week, guys. 261 air yards in the first game without Jerry Jeudy. 261. That's going to be a top 10 week in the season, likely. You don't see that type of air yards in a given week. He saw 12 targets, and he turned that into 25 fantasy points. I think he's going to have even bigger days than we saw last week. Teddy Bridgewater's cooking, and you're going up against the Jets. I mean, you want to start Cortland Sutton. I would still start Deebo Samuel over Cortland Sutton if you really made me decide, but I think you gotta go with both, honestly. All right, Tyler Boyd or Antonio Gibson at flex. Yeah, I'm nervous about Antonio Gibson this week. I'm very still high on him for the rest of the season, but Antonio Gibson just does not have the best matchup in week 3. I still think you want to start Antonio Gibson in most situations. You want to be starting Antonio Gibson, but Washington's up against Buffalo today. Buffalo has been very good against running backs. They've been, let me pull this up here. Really, the Bills are going to throw the ball a lot. I think it's going to lead to Washington having to keep up with the offense. Najee Harris, week 1 against this team, 45 total yards, 5 fantasy points. Week 2, Myles Gaskin, the 25 rushing yards, 8 fantasy points. He had a couple catches in that game, 4 catches. So you got to hope Antonio Gibson has a role as a receiver today, because if he doesn't, and he doesn't score a touchdown, which no running back has scored a touchdown against the Bills yet, he's probably not going to be a top 20 running back. I think he has a pretty low floor this week. I think the ceiling is going to be there every week for Antonio Gibson. I'm not trying to talk you out of Antonio Gibson in probably most situations. He still has a 20-plus fantasy point ceiling. He could score multiple touchdowns easily any given week. So I don't want to bench him, but I would play Tyler Boyd over him. This is a long-winded answer, I know, but Tyler Boyd up against the Steelers. We talked about this every week so far. I'll probably mention it on every live stream, because I go back and I rewatch every game. And one of the things that I learned the most over the last couple of weeks, and really you look back at last season, we started to realize this trend last season too. The Steelers' defense is really good this year, guys, better than I expected. But the way that they operate on defense, they funnel passes to the slot. There is just short slot passes available. That's why we nailed Hunter Renfrow over 3.5 catches last week. Like, nobody's betting on Hunter Renfrow except for us last week, because he was playing in the slot against the Steelers. And what do you know? 8 targets, 6 catches. And we see week 1 against the Steelers, Cole Beasley, 13 targets. So you got to like Tyler Boyd in PPR. T. Higgins is out. That's a really big deal. I think Tyler Boyd and Jamar Chase are really good options this week. But Tyler Boyd's my favorite because, again, he's playing in the slot. And I really do like – I think you have a really good floor in the slot against the Steelers. Like, I would be surprised if Tyler Boyd didn't have at least 5 catches this week. That's a pretty good floor. Is Sony Michelle a start? Yeah, he's a start, Alec. I think Sony Michelle, Alexander Madison, Trey Sermon, a lot of these guys this week are starts. I mean, you can start Sony Michelle. He's going to be the top running back for the Rams. That being said, I think almost all of these guys, outside of Alexander Madison, I think Madison at least has a little bit higher of a receiving ceiling. I'll be very interested to see how Sony Michelle's role works out this week. He's probably the guy I'm most interested to see, because this could really have a big negative impact on Darrell Henderson. If Sony Michelle, and I hope Darrell Henderson gets back soon, injuries stone cold the worst part of all sports, but football especially, just such an injury-prone sport. But if Sony Michelle does well this week, why would they not split the carries between Sony Michelle and Darrell Henderson? They know Darrell Henderson has injury issues and is already starting. So I'm nervous for Darrell Henderson. I am, and I think Sony Michelle could have a good day. CEH or Madison? I would go with Clyde Edwards Lair over Madison, and here we are, guys. It's week 3. And you can just see the stress on my face when you're asking about Clyde Edwards Lair versus Alexander Madison. We're already here. It's just brutal. Clyde Edwards Lair, 3rd-round pick, at least. 2nd-round pick in most leagues, probably, this season. And we're already asking, should we bench him for Alexander Madison in week 3? And I understand. But again, Clyde Edwards Lair seeing 85% of the backfield touches for the Chiefs. That's the 3rd highest rate in the NFL. And it's the best offense in the league still. So I think the touchdowns are going to come for Clyde. I honestly think it's a pretty good bet to bet on Clyde being better than what he's being perceived as right now. Because he's really, again, Alexander Madison versus Clyde. And again, Alexander Madison could easily outscore Clyde this week. I actually think it's close. Again, Dalvin Cook out, Alexander Madison in a pretty good matchup against the Seahawks. And he's probably going to see 20. He could easily see 20-plus touches. I would argue Madison's actually the safer option. But I don't feel good about benching Clyde for Alexander Madison. That's just brutal, man. A Tyson Williams or CAH. Yeah, Tyson Williams, another guy. Add him to this long list of guys this week that I think is really touchdown dependent. I think there's a lot of traps this week. At least 2 of these guys is probably going to end up being a trap. I think I'm most confident in Madison, but then Sony Michelle as well, Trey Sermon. Sony Michelle and Trey Sermon, I think I'm more confident in Sony Michelle than Trey Sermon in terms of just getting at least 15 touches of the football. But I'm more confident in Trey Sermon having more upside than Sony Michelle. I think Trey Sermon is good. That's why I drafted him in the 6th and 7th rounds in some of my drafts. I didn't expect him to be a week 1 inactive. And by all accounts, he's by far the best running back on a really good rushing team heading into week 3. So I like Trey Sermon, I think, more for the ceiling. But I'm more confident in Sony Michelle's touch volume, if that makes sense, today. But then you also have Tyson Williams. And Tyson Williams has played well so far this season. And I have him in 4 out of my 6 high-stakes fantasy leagues. I have Tyson Williams because you're just not going to beat me on the waiver wire in these leagues. I grind the waiver wire insane. So I got Tyson Williams 4 out of my 6 leagues, and I've been trying to trade him since he landed on my team, and I have not been able to successfully trade him in any of the 4 leagues. I don't know if other Tyson Williams drafters are feeling this too, but people they understand the risk of Tyson Williams. He only saw 13 carries last week, and he's a 0 in the passing game. Lamar just does not throw to his running backs very much. He actually has a couple catches, but you shouldn't project him for any catches this week. And then week 1, he had 9 carries. So he's had a total of 21 carries through 2 weeks, but he's gotten over 10 fantasy points in both those games because he's been insanely efficient, because it's so hard to stop the Ravens' running attack. Even with an injured offensive line, Tyson Williams is over 140 yards through his first 2 games. And I think he's top 3 in the league in efficiency, averaging an insane yards per carry. Let me see if I can pull this up really quickly. And then you look at the matchup today, and he's up against the Detroit Lions. And you got to love Tyson Williams' matchup more than all of the other running backs we've already mentioned. But he could easily see 10 or fewer carries. So I'm out on Tyson Williams, and that's why I'm trying to trade him. And one of the only downsides of my current role in my job and what I'm doing in my life right now is I really do sacrifice a lot of trade advice. Like, so many people that I'm trying to do trades with are like, yeah, I just saw you say you like this guy, so I'm not going to trade him to you. And it's just tough. It's a sacrifice I'm willing to make, though. And Tyson Williams is a guy I want to trade away. But you look at the efficiency for Tyson Williams, 6.5 yards per carry. That's top 5 in the league. 6.5 yards per carry in the NFL is absolutely asinine. Tyson Williams has looked good, so he's gonna see some touches. There's such a rotation there. There's very limited. There's a lot of touchdown risk as well. All right, getting back to some of the questions. Let me change up the banner at the bottom here. I don't know if I've shown my wide receiver list yet, so we're gonna look at the top 10 receivers as I answer some questions, because I see a lot of questions in the chat, guys. We're close to football. 2 hours away. I'm in a different time zone this week, so I started a little late. So I gotta get the energy up. I have less time than I usually do on these live streams. Thanks for tuning in, by the way, guys. Seriously, just spending any time on this live stream, I appreciate it a lot. I think time is the most valuable thing in the world. So the fact that you're spending some time on the stream, I do appreciate it. John in the chat, love the app, man. Thanks. I appreciate that. If you haven't checked out the WalterPicks app in the iOS App Store yet, it can honestly answer a lot of the questions I'm seeing in the chat. And you're going to get plenty of free uses, especially if you haven't downloaded the app yet. WalterPicks on the iOS App Store. You can compare any 2 players to make start-sit decisions, leveraging machine learning, artificially intelligent powered projections that have been the most accurate projections in the industry for back-to-back seasons. Then you're also going to get access to the trade analyzer to help you dominate trades. But more importantly, we're going to talk a little bit about DraftKings FanDuel today, because I got to share my DraftKings lineup. I'm 2-0 in my head-to-head DraftKings league, which is huge. This is a high-stakes, head-to-head, season-long league where I have to pick a new lineup every week. There's 64 teams in the league. So it's a high-stakes, lot of teams. So there's a lot of potential prizes in the league. And I'm 2-0. I finished top 5 each of the last 2 seasons. I actually got lucky last week, though. I finished bottom 6 in scoring, but I played the guy who scored the least points. And sometimes, you're going to take those W's where you can. But we got to be better this week for sure. And I feel good about the DraftKings lineup today. But, John, getting to your question, man. Sutton, Alexander Madison, Amari Cooper, start 2. Yeah, I would go Sutton and Amari Cooper. I would. And it looks like Amari Cooper's trending towards playing. I got to refresh the news a little bit, because I know there's probably been some news since I started this live. But you can't bench Sutton, guys. Sutton had over 200 air yards. It was 250 air yards in a game. There's plenty of players. I think 250 air yards would rank top 10 this season. He did that in a game. And it was the first game without Jerry Jeudy. You had to love that role that you saw to Cortland Sutton last week. So you got to go back to him. And Amari Cooper, he saw 16 targets week 1 or 15 targets week 1. So you can't bench Amari Cooper. You really can't. He's too good. He went under 10 fantasy points only 3 times last season. And he did it last week. I'm not expecting back-to-back games under 10 points for Amari Cooper. One of the most consistent, underratedly consistent receivers in the league. People don't realize how consistent Amari Cooper is. And it's really been a staple of his years in Dallas so far. But he's off the injury report, left off the final injury report with a ribs injury. So, yeah, start Amari Cooper. I'm glad we confirmed that injury news as well. All right. Shazutu, how's it going, man? We're seeing some good questions in the YouTube live here. We're live on TikTok and YouTube, guys. I'm answering questions from both. I got Terry and Barkley in a 2nd and 3rd round pick. Gave up CMC and Cephas in a 6 and 7. Yeah, I don't hate that at all. Really, I don't. I think Saquon Barkley. We got to talk about Saquon. I can't believe I haven't talked about Saquon Barkley yet for this week. I cannot wait to see Saquon Barkley unleashed. I drafted Saquon Barkley in a ton of my best ball leagues. If you've been following me since early on this offseason, I grinded best ball drafts this season. I drafted over 500 teams. It was actually, I think, 499. 490. I actually didn't hit 500. I think it was 499 drafts. Maybe if you include the listener drafts, it was a little over 500. But I was doing the tournaments. And Saquon Barkley has league-winning upside, and we're going to see it this week, guys, against the Falcons. Saquon Barkley played 86% of the snaps last week on a short week. So they went Sunday. They had a Sunday game. Then he played 86% of the snaps on a Thursday. And now he's had a longer week off. And he's against the Falcons as a favorite. And the Giants are going to be favored in many games this season. You got to love Saquon Barkley this week. I mean, I'm playing him on DraftKings in my head-to-head contest. I think you have to lock in Saquon Barkley into every DraftKings and FanDuel lineup this week. This could very easily be the cheapest you get Saquon Barkley all season on both FanDuel and DraftKings. And I also think Saquon Barkley is a must start in every fantasy league from this point moving forward. I think it made sense to bench him the first 2 weeks. I actually advised you to bench him in week 2. That ended up working out, even though he played 86% of the snaps. But from here on out, you can't bench Saquon Barkley. So I like the trade, honestly. And the Christian McCaffrey injury obviously made that look a lot better. And I really hope Christian McCaffrey comes back soon. Again, injury is the worst. Chuba Hubbard, all of a sudden, going to be a week 4. I mean, look at the running backs we're talking about. And all the people trashing on zero running back, by the way. The zero running back approach actually makes a lot of sense in a lot of situations. And I did it in a bunch of best ball drafts. And honestly, those have been my highest scoring teams so far. Rondale Moore or A.J. Brown. All right, let's take a deep breath on A.J. Brown. Don't bench A.J. Brown. He's going to be fine this week. You need to start A.J. Brown. You really do. You have to start him. You can't be playing Rondale Moore over A.J. Brown. And I understand the appeal of Rondale Moore this week. The Jaguars are trash. A.J. Brown really has not had good weeks in back-to-back weeks. But A.J. Brown has never had a stretch in his career with 3 bad games in a row. We haven't seen it so far. It doesn't mean it can't happen, obviously. But we really have not seen A.J. Brown struggle for 3 straight games in his career so far. A.J. Brown, he's off to a disappointing start. He's gone under 50 yards in each of the first 2 games. He did score a touchdown to salvage his day in week 1. However, there's a lot of really good peripheral numbers for A.J. Brown. He's seeing 8+ targets in every game so far. He's seeing targets. You look at sorry, I misread this. He's seen 8+ targets in every game this season. And then you look at his stats when he's getting 8 targets, he's averaging 93 yards a game. So A.J. Brown's going to be fine. And you look back at last season, he actually had less targets per game than that. He's seeing more volume this season than he saw last season. So A.J. Brown's going to be totally fine. Again, he's seeing 8.5 targets a game. And last season, I think that was closer to 7.5. Yeah, 7.5. So he's seeing an additional target per game, and then we're panicking about A.J. Don't panic about A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown's a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL. You pull up my top 10 wide receivers this week, he's at number 10. I have CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper doesn't make the top 10 list for the first time this week, but he's at number 11 for me. Calvin Ridley, I expect a big bounce back day from him. And every week it feels like there's 2 wide receivers from the same team. Only like one example of this in each week, where there's 2 wide receivers on the same team in my top 10. And this week it's DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. You got to obviously be starting Tyler Lockett till he cools off as well. I mean, he's just starting on such a hot streak in this season. And obviously we know there's going to be some down weeks for Tyler Lockett. Nobody's going to be surprised by that. But we already confirmed the ceiling is there. That's why you drafted Tyler Lockett. Tyler Lockett has Tyreek Hill level ceiling every week. His floor is, 5 points. It's a pretty low floor. But the ceiling makes him much worth a start, and he puts him into my top 10 wide receivers heading into this week. But DK Metcalf is the guy I really want to be betting on, because DK Metcalf is the guy that people are starting to sleep on a little bit, similar to A.J. Brown. Don't sleep on either of these guys. They're both going to end up leading their team in receiving, most likely. Like, I would be pretty surprised if DK Metcalf doesn't have just as big of weeks as Tyler Lockett has had these first 2 weeks. And he's seeing 8 targets a game too. They're both seeing 8 targets a game. Like, the volume is there, and that's what you want. That's really all you can hope for is the volume. And then you got to trust that the talent is going to win out with DK Metcalf and A.J. Brown. So I would start both those guys. How do you feel about Devonta Smith? Yeah, we haven't talked much about the Eagles game. I'm very excited for this Eagles game. I've obviously been huge on Jalen Hurts. He's my most drafted quarterback by far. I have him in 4 out of my 6 high-stakes leagues. I actually have Kyla Murray in one of them too, which I'm feeling really good about. Number 1 quarterback overall so far this season. But you look at Jalen Hurts heading into this week against Dallas, and you got to feel good about starting Jalen Hurts this week. Jalen Hurts, he has yet to throw for 275 yards in a game, but the Cowboys have allowed a 346 passing yards per game so far this season. Jalen Hurts could have his first game over 300 yards this week. His passing ceiling is significantly higher this week than the average week. But then you add in the rushing floor. And the rushing floor is exactly why we drafted Jalen Hurts. It's exactly why I was not going to draft a quarterback early this season, period, unless one of the top 4 guys slid. Like, I was happy to get Kyla Murray if I was the last guy to take one of the top 4. Same thing with Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson. Obviously, Mahomes went first in almost every league, so I didn't get him. But Jalen Hurts has very similar rushing ceiling, and he's gone over 20 fantasy points each of the first 2 weeks. That's the floor. Against the Falcons, his one best matchup, he put up 34. He could easily go over 30 points this week. Lock in Jalen Hurts. He's in my top 10 quarterbacks this week. Again, I'll pull up the quarterbacks. If you're watching live on TikTok, guys, we're live on TikTok and YouTube right now. I'm chilling in Arizona this week. I'm on a different time zone, and I cannot wait for the games. By the way, adjusting to this time zone has been difficult, right? It's 3 hours behind. So where I'm from in Boston, it's really 11 a.m. It's about to be 11 a.m. But where I am right now, it's 8 a.m. So it's still 8 a.m. where I woke up in Arizona time this morning. I woke up at 5 a.m. and I still started the stream a little bit late. But we are live from Arizona right now, and there's no team I like more this week than the Arizona Cardinals. And maybe I'm being a little biased as a tourist in Arizona right now, but Kyla Murray is going to put up at least 30 fantasy points against the Jaguars today. Kyla Murray's been unstoppable. He's been the number 1 quarterback in fantasy football so far this season, and I want to play him in DraftKings and FanDuel this week if I'm not playing Justin Fields. Kyla Murray is just a lock for 20 fantasy points, and even if the Cardinals get a lead in this game, you just know they're going to keep their foot on the gas pedal with Kyla Murray all through the game. They could be up 30 points, and it won't surprise me if Kyla Murray is still throwing touchdowns. I actually like AJ Green as a sneaky sleeper this week, by the way. AJ Green and Emmanuel Sanders, the two oldies that I think have decent sleeper appeal this week. But I think the Cardinals are going to have a huge day. And AJ Green is at around plus 200 to score a touchdown today. I don't hate that. I don't see any receiving props for him. So if you can find them, though, they're probably pretty low. I bet they're like in the 30s. He's probably going to go over 40 yards today. Harris or Michelle? Any news on D-Hop? Yeah, I think D-Hop's playing. Damien Harris or Sony Michelle, by the way. Wow. I love that we're getting that question. And I was drafting so early this offseason that I had teams where I drafted Damien Harris and Sony Michelle like as a handcuff situation, and now you can start both of them. It's great. I would personally go with Damien Harris over Sony Michelle this week. I think they're both really similar options, though. I think they're both touchdown-dependent running backs. I feel better about Damien Harris's workload. I mean, Damien Harris is going to see 15 touches. This is exactly why we were drafting Damien Harris. He fit the zero RB build so well this season, too. I'm feeling really good about the zero running back teams I drafted with Damien Harris, because all you were trying to do is lock in volume when you're going late running back approach. And he's averaging 80 rushing yards a game. He's actually seen 2 targets a game, too. He's the 6th most carries in the NFL. So he's averaging almost 20 carries a game. That's Damien Harris. And again, we said it all offseason. The offensive line is the clear strength of the Patriots. So I know Trent Brown's dealing with some injuries. I still like Damien Harris a little bit more than Sony Michelle this week. Though, again, I think they're similar. How do you feel about Alexander Madison? Yeah, I think Alexander Madison's the guy I like the most. Of all these like fringe running backs, backup running backs playing today, Madison's my favorite. He really is my favorite one because I think he has a really good receiving ceiling. Sorry, I just missed that comment. I'll try to pull that up again. Hey, Sam, love the content. Thanks, man. Wondering where you thought I should, who you thought I should start at flex. Mike Williams, Sterling Shepard, Tyler Boyd, Chase Claypool. These are all a lot of good names to talk about. So I want to touch on each of these guys really quickly because I'm seeing a lot of questions about all of these guys. Ryan, first of all, thanks for tuning in. And we are live from Arizona right now. Mike Williams is a guy you really want to be starting. And just looking at this very quickly, I would rank these guys. Mike Williams, number 1. Tyler Boyd, probably number 2. Shepard 3, Claypool 4. But if we're going to look at like the ceiling and floor for each of these guys, Mike Williams to me is the best combination of ceiling and floor. I think his floor is pretty good. I mean, his floor is 10 fantasy points. I think his ceiling is already pretty established too. I mean, he could easily go over 20. So I would go Mike Williams, number 1. Again, I think the Chargers game is going to be extremely high scoring. You want pieces of the Chargers-Chiefs game this week. The Chargers are going to throw for over 300 yards. The over-under for Justin Herbert is 305. So I like Williams the most. Sterling Shepard I like too. Obviously, a juicy matchup against the Falcons. And he's been great this season. I mean, he's been the clear best receiver for the Giants. He really hasn't been close. And I do expect over the course of the season, Kenny Golladay to end up with more targets than Sterling Shepard. But so far, this hasn't been the case. And so far, really, Sterling Shepard's the one making the most of his touches. So I do like Sony Michelle Sorry, I do like Sterling Shepard a lot. All right. But Tyler Boyd's a guy I like this week too. I would go Mike Williams, Tyler Boyd number 2, because again, Steelers funnel passes to the slot. He's going to see minimum 5 catches. I think Tyler Boyd is the safest floor of all 4 of these guys this week. I would be really surprised if Tyler Boyd goes under 10 fantasy points. Because again, the way that the Steelers defense works is a lot of open area in the short middle part of the field. It's a really good defense. It's actually working for them. It's not working very well for offenses, but they're going to take what the Steelers give them. And so far, every team has done that. We saw Cole Beasley, 13 targets. Hunter Renfrow, 9 targets. Tyler Boyd's better than both those guys, but by a lot. And then you add in the fact T. Higgins is out this week, and you have a fantastic floor. So I would go Mike Williams, 1. I think he has the higher ceiling than Boyd in similar floor. Boyd, 2. I want to go Sterling Shepard, 3 for the matchup, but you got to like Chase Claypool, too. I think all 4 of these guys are solid starts this week. And honestly, I think at least 3 of these guys are going to do well. So you're in a good situation. I think the wide receiver situation is just so clearly the middle round wide receivers. There's so many good ones coming out this season. Tyler Lockett, Deebo Samuel, just leading the league in fantasy points the first couple of weeks. And they were both taken after round 4 in almost every league. Thoughts on Chase and Laviska? Yeah, Jamar Chase, you got to like him a lot this week too. You do. But I think that Jamar Chase is going to have a really good day. I missed the second guy. Oh, Laviska Shenault. Yeah, I mean, I have to start him in one league this week. I don't feel good about Laviska Shenault. The thing about Laviska Shenault is he's actually being used in a relatively similar role to Rondale Moore. I mean, you got to think Laviska Shenault today on the sideline against the Cardinals. Go Arizona, by the way. We're chilling in Arizona today. But the Cardinals are going to destroy the Jaguars. And Laviska Shenault's going to be standing on the sideline watching Rondale Moore in the perfect role for Laviska Shenault. They really are very similar players. Like, they get the ball very close to the line of scrimmage. Laviska Shenault's average depth of target is bottom in the league. He's averaging, let me pull this up here, his air yards. He has 7 completed air yards. Almost every single catch he has this season is at the line of scrimmage. And this makes perfect sense when you go back and watch the games too. You go back and watch the way Laviska Shenault is being used, and he's just like basically a second running back. He just does not leave within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. His average target distance is 4.2 yards down the field. That's 85th in the NFL. So all that being said, he's going to get the ball similar to Rondale Moore. Like, Laviska Shenault's going to touch the ball minimum 5 times. He has that role for the Jaguars. So he has a decent floor. It's just the ceiling is really low for Laviska. He's a guy that I'm going to be wanting to trade in the leagues that I have him, because what is the ceiling for Laviska Shenault if he's getting 0 targets down the field? It really is like you got to hope he gets 6 catches and he ends up scoring a touchdown and he gets 20 fantasy points. But there's less ceiling for me with Laviska. So I would say I like Jamar Chase honestly a lot more than Laviska Shenault today. Dak or Tom? By the way, guys, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We got over 100 people tuned in on YouTube right now. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Seriously, I love these streams Sunday morning. I'm pumped, man. I'm pumped. We got a couple hours till football. I'm getting excited. But when we get to 300 likes on this YouTube live, we will be giving out another free prop pick. We're 2 for 3 this season on the free prop picks. And Ryan Tannehill let us down a little bit in week 1, sorry. But we're still 2 for 3. So we're going with another really good one today when we hit 300 likes on the YouTube live. Again, link is in the TikTok bio if you're just tuning in on TikTok. And I can show you my top 10 quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends on the YouTube live too. I know it's a little dark here. You would hope Arizona's a little sunnier for the stream, but it's still very nice out, man. It's a very, very good 80-degree temperature. By the way, I am very much looking forward to the coming weeks where I get to be a weather reporter again, but really no bad weather looking like it's coming to the NFL this week. The Giants looks like there was like a small chance of rain in that game, but really nothing substantial. Remember, when it comes to weather, you really should not be overreacting to anything that isn't wind over 25 miles an hour. When the wind's bad, then you really got to be concerned. That's my 30 seconds of being a weatherman. I look forward to more of that later this season. But again, if you come to the YouTube live, we are at 87 likes. We're almost a third of the way there. We're less than a third of the way through the stream. Smash the like button, guys. Hit that like button. We're live on YouTube. I'm going to get to as many comments as I possibly can, I promise. But when we get to 300 likes, we're going to give out the free prop pick of the day. And I'm feeling very good about the free prop today. I've already hammered it. And I'm in Arizona this week, guys, which is also fun because sports betting is completely legal in Arizona. It's been very, very nice to be able to bet legally and not, just a very, very a wide array of options in the legal sports betting of Arizona. Whereas Massachusetts, I'm more confined to just Prize Picks, Underdog. I have a little bit more options. But you got to check out the props on PrizePicks and Underdog. If you haven't yet, guys, use the code Walter on PrizePicks. They're really giving out some of the softest lines. They gave us A.J. Dillon over 17.5 rushing yards last week. He ended up getting 18, but I mean, it's just like 30 yards below every other book that had that prop. All right. Good morning, Litsteezy. How's it going, man? Montgomery, Sutton, Madison. It's got to be Sutton. You got to start Sutton. You can't bench Sutton. You really can't. You really can't. Alex, it's another great day to be great, man. Great day for some fantasy football and really just a great Sunday. A great slate of games coming up this Sunday in just a couple hours. Alexander Madison, Antonio Gibson, Tyson Williams, pick 2, full point PPR. Alex, full point PPR, this honestly is an easy decision for me, though I could easily end up being wrong. Obviously, Tyson Williams could easily score a touchdown and score 15 fantasy points with the rushing efficiency that he's had and against the Lions. But in PPR league, he doesn't have that much receiving ceiling. Madison does. So I would go Madison and Gibson. I know Gibson's in a scary spot this week too, but I'm not benching Antonio Gibson for Alexander Madison or Tyson Williams. It's just not something I'm willing to do. Marvin Jones Jr. or Trey Sermon? Definitely Marvin Jones. You got to love the role you've seen from Marvin Jones so far this season. And I'm starting Trey Sermon in one league, and the only reason I'm starting him, Antonio Brown, is out this week. And I think I'm dealing with another injury. Darrell Henderson, too. So I wouldn't want to start Trey Sermon. You shouldn't want to start Trey Sermon. Again, there's risk with Trey Sermon. Obviously, he was a healthy scratch in week 1. But already, it's week 3, and everyone that was ahead of him isn't playing. They're just ravaged by injuries in the 49ers backfield. And he's fully healthy. He was in the concussion protocol, but he's fully back. And he could easily see 15-plus touches. But he could also very easily have a bad few first runs and get less than 10 touches this week. So I certainly wouldn't be starting him in that situation. I would definitely want to be starting Gibson and Madison. But all that being said, I think all three are pretty decent options. There's a lot of good deep running back options this week. Hurts or Herbert. There's also a lot of good quarterback options. And honestly, I think we're going to get this question every single week. I think we're going to get this question. Hurts or Herbert. And by the way, I love seeing this question because that just shows you that the Jalen Hurts pick was just an absolute smash this season. Jalen Hurts, very happy to have him on your fantasy teams right now. And I had Jalen Hurts ranked one spot ahead of Justin Herbert this week. And I think both are going to have huge days. There's so many good quarterbacks this week. Justin Herbert, I think, is going to throw over 300 yards against the Chiefs. I think he's going to have a massive day. But Jalen Hurts has the rushing and the passing upside this week. He could also go over 300 yards passing in this game against the Cowboys. The Cowboys are allowing 340 passing yards per game so far this season. And yeah, the Cowboys have had a tough first two matchups. Obviously, they went against Tom Brady and I think Justin Herbert so far this season. So that is, maybe one sign of hope for the Cowboys defense. But they're also dealing with a lot of injuries of their own, too. So I do like Jalen Hurts. I have him ranked one spot ahead of Justin Herbert, just one spot. So it's close. I like both of them a lot. But I'm leaning towards Jalen Hurts. Kenny Golladay, questionable with a hip injury, worked out earlier this morning, and he will play. He is playing this week. All right. Getting back to some of the news. Let's refresh on the news really quickly, make sure there's nothing big that we missed. Shepard or Barkley. You have to start Saquon Barkley from this week on moving forward. And this was I honestly think this was probably the last week you could have gone out and got Saquon Barkley. I tried in every single league. I sent an offer for Saquon Barkley in every single one of my leagues this week. It was the only player I sent an offer for in every single league. I think this is the buying point for Saquon. He played 86% of the snaps last week on a short week. And now he has a long rest week because he played last Thursday. And he's up against the Falcons, and he's going to play 86% at least of the snaps against the Falcons. He could easily score multiple touchdowns. He could have a massive receiving and rushing day in this game. And the Giants are obviously a liability on the offensive line, but they actually played pretty well last week. Daniel Jones looking good is a good thing for Saquon Barkley. Make no mistake about that. So I like Saquon a lot this week. You have to lock him in. He's my number. If I pull up my running back rankings again, I'm going to talk about my DraftKings lineup too, because I think it plays well into a lot of this discussion. But my top 10 fantasy football running backs this week, guys, with Dalvin Cook out, McCaffrey was number 1. He's obviously out now. I didn't update that. My bad. Alvin Kamara's going to be the number 1 guy for me. Derrick Henry, Aaron Jones. Saquon Barkley's at number 5. So he's my number 5 ranked running back. With McCaffrey already playing, Dalvin Cook out. Saquon's the top 5 running back this week, guys. He's against the Falcons. So fire him up with confidence. So he's a lock on DraftKings and FanDuel this week at his price. And I think a lot of people are going to fall into traps on DraftKings and FanDuel this week, paying down for really volatile running backs. Some of them are going to end up working out, of course. There's plenty of them too. Alexander Madison, Trey Sermon. There's going to be a lot of guys that work out. Tyson Williams that you're going to price down at running back. But Saquon Barkley has a way higher ceiling than all of them. He really does. He's number 5 running back for me this week. I think you got to be starting Ezekiel Elliott, Joe Mixon as well. Joe Mixon is also setting up really well. I mean, he's leading the league in carries per game. He is really getting the ball a lot. Actually, it might be Derrick Henry now after that massive week 2. But Joe Mixon is a guy that you need to start. And again, the only reason people were not drafting Joe Mixon was a scare about injuries, which, again, is ridiculous because you don't know who's going to get injured. This is what I was saying all offseason. This is how I approach injuries. Don't pretend like you know he's going to get injured. Draft the guys that you think are going to get the most volume in the best offenses. And that's exactly what Joe Mixon was. The offense isn't great. The offensive line isn't good. But the volume is there for Joe Mixon. 24.5 carries per game, second most in the NFL. But he's also seeing 3 targets a game. He's top 5 in weighted opportunities per game. He has 98 rushing yards a game. Joe Mixon is exactly what we wanted Joe Mixon to be. And I really hope he can get a full healthy season because he's going to finish as a top 5 running back if he keeps getting that volume. CB Fishing, man, how you doing in the chat? I'm doing great, man. It's been a fantastic week. I'm super excited for week 3. Honestly, every week feels like it gets more exciting because we learn more every week. And there's so much more we're going to learn about so many teams this week. And you start to really realize what past matchups meant and how certain teams are going to struggle and succeed this season. And this is going to be a really telling week for a lot of teams. And I'm in Arizona right now. So I've adjusted to a new time zone. That's why I started the live stream a little late. Though it was 8 a.m. My time when I started, I think. Maybe a little earlier, actually. I woke up at like 4:30 a.m. Arizona time. My time is all off right now. But I'm very excited that we got football coming on our screens very soon. All right. Hey, Sam, I got a crazy pick one. All right, Nick, let's see it, man. Mike Williams, Chris Godwin, Robert Woods, and Cortland Sutton. Yeah, Nick, this is crazy. I mean, all 4 of these guys are great. This is probably, I would imagine this is a 10-person team. But when you look at these receivers, and the more I look at some of these receiver questions too, like look at these guys. Mike Williams, who's probably picked after round 7. Chris Godwin was probably, picked in 3rd or 4th round. Robert Woods probably picked in 3rd or 4th round. Sutton probably picked like round 8. And all of these guys are wide receiver 1 ceilings this week. Although, again, I really don't want to be benching Cortland Sutton against the Jets. I think that Cortland Sutton is probably the safest guy on this list. Again, he had 250 air yards last week. There's still the majority of the players in the league have not had that through 2 weeks. He had that in 1 game, and it was the 1 game without Jerry Jeudy. And Teddy Bridgewater has looked good, and the role for Cortland Sutton is amazing. So honestly, I would probably go with him first. And Robert Woods, we all should expect a bounce-back game from Robert Woods sooner rather than later. Stafford's looks good. Obviously, Cooper Kupp's been the go-to guy, but there's going to be weeks where it's Robert Woods. That's not going to be surprising to anyone. And he could easily score multiple touchdowns any given week. So I like him a lot too. But honestly, I think I would go with Chris Godwin. I think I would go with Chris Godwin and Cortland Sutton. Chris Godwin with no Antonio Brown. Godwin's actually been the most consistent receiver for the Buccaneers for the first 2 games. We had a big week 1 from Antonio Brown, a big week 2 from Mike Evans. We were on both of those, by the way. Easy money on the Buccaneers so far this season. We had Antonio Brown in the first game of the season. He ended up going over 100 yards. Mike Evans last week, people were really, his over-under was like 40 last week. It was like in the 50s. It wasn't even 60 for Mike Evans, who really does not have multiple bad games in a row very consistently. And then Chris Godwin, though, he's been the most consistent. Chris Godwin he's ran 82 routes. That's the most in the NFL. He's seeing pretty consistent volume. He actually leads the league in red zone targets. He's got 5 catches in the red zone. He's actually number 5 in the league in slot routes too. He's dominating in the slot for Tampa Bay. And again, Tampa Bay just leading the league. They're going to lead the league again in deep attempts per game. They're actually not leading the league right now, but they probably will by the end of the season. So I would go with those 2. Madison or Zeke? Oh, God, man. This is where we're at. This is where we are at. We're asking Alexander Madison or Ezekiel Elliott, Alexander Madison or Clyde Edwards Lair. It's just brutal for Zeke right now. Honestly, I was much more confident about Ezekiel Elliott after week 1 than week 2. And if you've been following me for a long time, you know, I don't do take lock. I'm not going to lock into takes. I think locking into takes is one of the biggest things to try to avoid when you analyze football like I do. And I rewatching every game, looking at all the stats, crunching the numbers. Zeke is a guy I really liked after week 1. Again, the Cowboys offense looked really good. They looked good. And they looked like they could be top 5 in points scored. And I still think they could be this season. And that's good for Zeke. That means touchdowns for Zeke. But he only played 73% of snaps last week. And Tony Pollard clearly looks better than him. And Zeke scored last week. He was a top 10 running back. I've never seen a week where someone is a top 10 fantasy football running back, yet everyone kind of agrees that it was not a good week for them overall because Tony Pollard looked better and he's stealing a lot of targets. It's capping the ceiling for Zeke. It really is. He scores a touchdown last week. He still goes under 20 fantasy points. So he is more touchdown dependent than you would have wanted. And he is not running that much as a receiver. He only has 2 targets in each of the first 2 games. It's not terrible, but Tony Pollard's stealing like 5-6 targets a game. So all that being said, you have to start Ezekiel Elliott over Alexander Madison, and you have to start Clyde Edwards Lair over all of these running backs too. I know people are nervous about Clyde. I'm really betting on a bounce back day from Clyde Edwards Lair. All right, let me pull up my DraftKings lineup, guys. I know I see a lot of questions in the chat about DraftKings FanDuel. I think there's a lot of really good options on DraftKings and FanDuel this week. Is OBJ a start? Ronnie, I can't wait to watch Odell Beckham Jr. back out there, man. I'm so excited to see him back out there. And by all accounts, all offseason, everyone close to OBJ said he looked 100%. He looks like the OBJ of old. He's dominating defenders in practice at full speed in pads. He was practicing in full for really the past month. But he wasn't ready to go week 1, and they held him out week 2. And I don't think it's a bad move, by the way, for the Browns to make sure he's 100%. But he doesn't come into this game with any injury designation at all. I think he is a start, Ronnie. There's a lot of good options, like deeper options that could easily end up doing better than him. And I'm fine benching OBJ for his first game back. I don't think that's a terrible process. But I'm also fine starting him. I think he's going to go over 50 yards, and he's going to be the clear number 1 receiver. The thing about the Browns, though, the Browns are really spreading the ball out a lot more than most other teams. They really are using their plethora of wide receiver talent. I talked to Browns.WalterPicks before the season, and really the one big takeaway I had from that conversation, other than confirming that the Browns offensive line was going to be dominant this season, which is definitely been the case so far, it was that the Browns have a lot of receiver depth. Like, they have depth. Donovan Peoples-Jones is good. We've already saw Schwartz. We didn't even talk about him on that stream. He's been good too, the rookie for the Browns. They're really spreading the ball out a lot. They're using the tight ends, but of course they're using the running backs a ton too. So that does concern me about the floor for OBJ. So I would be fine starting him, but I don't really want to start him this week if you have better options. All right, getting to the DraftKings FanDuel lineup now. This is my head-to-head league, high-stakes league, 64 people in this league, and I'm 2-0. I'm 2-0 in this league so far. I've been top 5 in this league each of the last 2 seasons. And I'm pulling it up on TikTok. You can see the lineup behind me. I'm also going to talk through it on YouTube. But my favorite play of the week on DraftKings, I'll start at the top here. It's Saquon Barkley. Again, I think you need to start Saquon Barkley. I think Saquon Barkley to me is the lock of week 3, sorry. I think Saquon Barkley is going to go over 20 fantasy points today, and he has a pretty good floor too. Again, 86% of the snaps in week 2. That's exactly what you wanted to see. And he broke off one long run. He didn't have a great game. He didn't touch the ball that much for 86% of the snaps. But the fact that he was out there is a really big deal. He is the lock of week 3. I would be starting Saquon Barkley in all of your contests. And it's what I'm doing in DraftKings this week in my high-stakes league. And again, he's only 6,500. He's only 6,500. This could be the cheapest we get Saquon Barkley all season. At quarterback, I want to go with Justin Fields. I really did want to go with Justin Fields. But there was such good value at positions this week that I was able to pay up for Kyla Murray. And this is a head-to-head league. So I'm gladly going to put Kyla Murray into my head-to-head contest. Kyla Murray's a lock for 20 fantasy, minimum 20 fantasy points this week. I would be pretty surprised if it goes under 20 fantasy points. And his ceiling is literally 40 plus. He could easily put up 40 plus fantasy points against this Jaguars defense. He's already had massive days against much better defenses. Kyla Murray is the most expensive. I think the second most expensive quarterback, and I'm paying up for him. Again, the floor ceiling combination for these top end quarterbacks, they really are playing at a level in a type of way we've never seen in the NFL before. Kyla Murray has the second most passing yards in the NFL, and he also has 2 rushing touchdowns. And he's thrown a bunch of touchdowns as well. He's averaging 35 fantasy points a game. 35 fantasy points a game. He's gone over 30 points in each of his first 2 games. He scored a rushing touchdown in both those, and he could do that again today. He's just too good to stop. So I'm going Kyla Murray in the quarterback slot, Saquon Barkley in the running back slot. I feel really good about that start, by the way, for this lineup. A good floor ceiling combination. I'm going to start to lose a lot of people, though, with this next pick. I'm going with Clyde Edwards Lair. He's priced at $4,800. He's priced below guys literally not even playing this week. He's priced, I think, below. If I pull it up, some of the guys he's priced below is just laughable. It really is. Just absolutely insane. You got to lock in the 10 to 15 backfield touches on the Chiefs for this price. Really, that's all it is. I think he's being slept on overall, but like at this price point, it's just too good to ignore. So I'm definitely going with Clyde Edwards Lair in this lineup. And I think he actually has a decent floor. Again, I think the volume's going to be there for Clyde Edwards Lair. All right, moving on this lineup, the wide receivers that I'm going with. A.J. Brown, Cortland Sutton. We talked a lot about Cortland Sutton already. I'm starting Cortland Sutton on DraftKings for $6,000. Again, he saw 250 air yards last week. What else do you need to see from the roll for Cortland Sutton? By the way, smash the like button, guys. We're almost at 300 likes. And when we get there, I'll give out the free prop pick. We're live on TikTok and YouTube right now, guys. Thanks for tuning in. But I do really like Cortland Sutton this week. The volume he saw and the role he saw a week ago, and he's up against the Jets. The Jets are not good. So I like Cortland Sutton a lot. The only concern in this game for the Broncos is if they just destroy the Jets and they're able to run the ball. I actually took Jets against the spread, though, in this game. People are overreacting. They're overreacting about the Jets game last week. And I know it was bad. It was really bad. At least 3 of those picks by Zach Wilson were bad. Just bad interceptions. But let's all take a deep breath. It's the second week of the season. Zach Wilson could still be good. Zach Wilson could still win this game today against the Broncos. Let's not pretend the Broncos are like a Super Bowl level team. And they're not against Bill Belichick this week, too, who has a historically amazing track record against rookie quarterbacks. So I like the Jets to bounce back today, honestly. But I like Cortland Sutton a ton. And A.J. Brown is also a guy I want maximum exposure to this week. A.J. Brown, again, we've never seen in his career. We've never seen him have 3 bad games in a row. Obviously, he hasn't been – he's still in the young part of his career. But he is seeing 8 targets a game. That's more than he saw last season. He's seeing 8 targets a game. Same thing for DK Metcalf, by the way. Both these guys. Don't be surprised when they bounce back. They both could go over 25 fantasy points with ease any given week. I think A.J. Brown's still a top 10 wide receiver in the league, period. So I'm firing up A.J. Brown this week. I'll pull up my top 10 rankings list again for the wide receiver position. You'll see A.J. Brown in there at number 10. So at this price, I'm locking in A.J. Brown and Cortland Sutton. But the guy that we haven't talked about at all, and I'm glad I'm talking through this DraftKings lineup right now. And so far, if you're just joining, by the way, so far, Kyla Murray in the quarterback slot, Saquon Barkley in the running back slot, Clyde Edwards Lair in the running back spot. This is my head-to-head DraftKings lineup. I'm showing it on TikTok, and I'm talking through it on YouTube right now. And I go A.J. Brown, Cortland Sutton at the wide receiver position, too. This is what Clyde Edwards Lair allows you to do, by the way. We're paying down for Clyde. We're paying down for the starting running back on a team that could score 30-plus points today. I know Clyde had a bad game, and the Chiefs scored 30-plus last game, but just he scores 1 touchdown, and he already returned value. And he's on the best offense in the league. I'm not fading Clyde Edwards Lair this week. It could end up being why this lineup loses, but it also could very easily make me number 1 this week. All right, Kyle Pitts. You need to start Kyle Pitts this week. You need to have some faith in Kyle Pitts as well. I did not draft Kyle Pitts in as many fantasy leagues as I wanted to. He just ended up going earlier as we got closer and closer to the season. It was disappointing because I did believe in the talent of Kyle Pitts. But the way that he was being priced in fantasy football almost guaranteed him to lose and to not beat expectation. He was going in the third, fourth round. He was being drafted as a top 5 tight end, and he's a rookie tight end. Tight ends by far the hardest position for rookies. Their average breakout year 3. It's a really tough position to learn, but he is playing that receiver role that we wanted. And he's seen 7 targets a game. And he is going to eat against the Giants, who have been just obliterated by tight ends so far this season. They've allowed a touchdown in each of the first 2 games to secondary tight ends. I think Hayden Hurst, honestly, could have a good game this week as well. But Kyle Pitts, I think he's going over 50 yards and a touchdown today. I like Kyle Pitts a lot. So I'm locking him into my lineup too. And he's the most reasonably priced tight end. You want to get TJ Hawkinson, Darren Waller into your lineups, of course. But at this price, Kyle Pitts could very easily have a similar ceiling to them. The floor is not quite the same. But again, 8 targets a game, 7 targets a game for Kyle Pitts. Lock him into the tight end slot. All right, last 2 players in this lineup. Sterling Shepard comes in at the flex slot. Again, we talked about why I like Sterling Shepard a lot. He's been the clear number 1 receiver for the Giants. And I'm going Sterling Shepard and Saquon Barkley. Stacked on the same team against Kyle Pitts. I'm kind of stacking this Giants game. I think this Giants game could underratedly be the highest scoring game of the week. I really do. And I want exposure to this game. The one game I don't have exposure to, though, other than Clyde Edwards Lair, is the Chiefs Chargers. And it's hard to get exposure to this game because of the price point each of these guys are at. So I like Clyde at the running back, though, to be able to pay up at a lot of different places. And then at defense, I went with the Tennessee Titans. Again, Carson Wentz, 2 sprained ankles he's playing on this week. You got to like the Titans defense. Even the Titans defense isn't good, but you play defenses based on matchup, and they are actually really cheap this week. Guys, smash the like button, smash the subscribe button. We're almost there. We are almost there to getting to 300 likes. We're way over a third of the way. Smash the like button, hit the subscribe button. We're live on TikTok and YouTube. I'm seeing a Trey Sermon or Miles Sanders question in the TikTok chat. I saw a lot of Trey Sermon questions in the YouTube chat as well. I really do think I'll address this one tomorrow. I really do think you got to bench Trey Sermon in that situation. I think you got to bench Trey Sermon in that situation. In this situation for Amar, Damien Harris, Cordero Patterson, Trey Sermon, like such similar guys. I don't want to start Cordero Patterson, by the way, and nobody's more excited about Cordero Patterson than me. No, not a single person. I drafted Cordero Patterson in the last round of over 30% of my best ball drafts. Last round pick. Most of the last round picks have scored 0 points. So I do like him a lot. And I'm excited that he's got this role. But I don't think I'd start him over Damien Harris or Trey Sermon. Honestly, I would go Damien Harris. I would. I'm not feeling that great about Damien Harris this week either. I think all three of these guys, Damien Harris, Cordero Patterson, Trey Sermon, will probably score less than 10 fantasy points if they don't score a touchdown. Patterson's honestly probably the guy that could do it without scoring a touchdown because he has a bigger receiving role than the other two. But to me, Damien Harris has the best chance at a touchdown this week, and he's seeing close to 20 carries a game. And you're just not getting that of those other two guys. All right. Hey, Sam, start Smith or Chase PPR, 5.100-yard bonus. Yeah, you got to start Jamar Chase over Devonta Smith. I love Devonta Smith this week, but T. Higgins is out. It just almost automatically means more targets for Jamar Chase, for Tyler Boyd. And it's not a great matchup for Jamar Chase. The Steelers secondary is not bad. They do funnel passes to the slot, which is good for Boyd. But I like Devonta Smith this week too. The Cowboys secondary really has just gotten torched so far this season. It's going to be really interesting to see how Trevon Diggs, if he matches up with Devonta Smith or not. I overrated the Trevon Diggs thing last week, though, so I'm not going to do it again this week. But Jamar Chase is the better option for me this week, and he's done more so far too. So you got to go Jamar Chase. It's close though, and the 100-yard bonus I think Luke applies pretty similarly to both these guys. I don't think you can accurately or confidently say, maybe not confidently say, Luke, which of these guys has a better chance at 100 yards. I argue it's Jamar Chase, but they both definitely have a good chance at it. All right. Good question, man. Good question. I'm going to try to get to as many questions as I can. Guys, we're live on TikTok. We're live on YouTube. Welcome to the Sunday morning live stream. I'm live in Arizona. It's actually raining. It's raining right now. Hopefully that's not a bad sign of things to come for today, because I'm feeling good today about the slate of games we have. And there's a lot of value to be had on the games today. We're live on TikTok and YouTube. When we get to 300 likes in the YouTube live, we will be giving out a free player prop pick. We're 2 for 3 on the free prop picks this season. We went 15 out of 17 on the free props, something crazy like that last season. We were over 60% lifetime in the WalterPicks app on the player props. We got 7 player props in the WalterPicks app today, and I'm feeling good about all of them. I definitely tossed on all of those. Gronk or Kittle. Kittle. It's Kittle for me this week. Hey, let me pull up my tight end rankings really quick. Let me answer this question really quick. I pulled up. Pick 2, Hopkins, Amari Cooper. It's the first 2. Hopkins and Amari Cooper. You can't bench Hopkins and Amari Cooper. Getting back to the tight end question, because I think tight ends usually relatively straightforward. I really do think it's a relatively straightforward position. I posted a video about it this week. There's only 5 guys. There's only 5 tight ends that have had 6+ targets in each of their first 2 games. Just 2 games. Only 5 tight ends with at least 6 targets in each of their first 2 games. Noah Fant, not Font. It's Fant. I get it. Noah Fant and TJ Hawkinson, Kyle Pitts, Darren Waller, Travis Kelce. That's it. And Kyle Pitts to me and Noah Fant are the 2 guys that you can probably go acquire for a reasonable price right now. But after that, I mean, George Kittle, where are you at, man? You're supposed to be a top 3 tight end. Really, a lot of people would debate him over Darren Waller this season. But he has struggled to start the year, and there's been very limited volume for George Kittle. And Gronk has obviously dominated. Gronk is a guy that Gronk, by the way, he had 5 targets last game. Like, he's going to have games with 5 or fewer targets. And Antonio Brown being out, does help Gronk. I would still go with Kittle, though. I would. And George Kittle is probably going to have his breakout game today. George Kittle is going to have massive weeks. The floor, though, is what you got to be disappointed with George Kittle. I mean, the floor is not what you're hoping for. He scored under 6 fantasy points last week, and he only has 4 targets in the game last week, 5 targets in week 1. He has 9 targets through 2 weeks. TJ Hawkinson had more of that in a game. So that is concerning. But he's going to do well in this matchup this week. George Kittle in a absolute smash matchup this week. So you got to go with George Kittle. I think you just can't bench George Kittle against Green Bay. Green Bay has struggled really, really badly against tight ends. I think they've allowed most fantasy points to the tight end position. Let me pull this up really quickly to confirm. But you got to be trotting out George Kittle. And honestly, in terms of tournaments on DraftKings and FanDuel, George Kittle is a pretty good option there too, because he's could be priced at one of his lowest points for the season, and he also does have a really high ceiling. He does. George Kittle the Packers have allowed the third most fantasy points per game to tight ends. They've been crushed by tight ends. The week 1, Juwan Johnson scores twice, and Adam Trautman also has a pretty good day. They let out 6 catches, 50 yards, 2 touchdowns to tight ends week 1. And then we saw TJ Hawkins in prime time really just be used all over the place against the Packers. And the 49ers should do something similar with Kittle. So I would go Kittle over Gronk. And I've been wrong about that each of the first 2 weeks. I would have said Kittle the first 2 weeks too. So take that with a grain of salt and how much you want to ride Gronk in the hot streak that he's on. But Gronk had 5 targets last week. Kittle's probably going to get more targets, and he's better. Where can I go for the player prop? Yeah, in the WalterPicks app, on the iOS App Store. I've spent tens of thousands of hours of my lifetime at this point helping build the WalterPicks app. It uses machine learning and artificial intelligence to just dominate all things fantasy. It's going to help you with your fantasy league, help you with DraftKings and FanDuel. It's going to give you exploitable player props. And we're over 60% already this season. And there's 7 picks in the app today. And the app is free to download. You can use almost every feature for free up to a certain point. But then you also, if you want to try out one of the premium features in the app, you just get a completely free 7-day trial. So you can just test out the app 100% completely free for 7 days. And really, like, I believe that every single product like mine, and really almost every single product in my eyes, should have a free trial. You should get to know what you're paying for before you pay. And then on top of it, with WalterPicks, it's like, start the free trial. If you think that it added more value than it cost, then keep the trial. Like, then do the subscription. If you don't, cancel the trial. No harm, no foul. I do appreciate any feedback on the app too. Always listening to feedback, and it's going to help you answer all your start-sit questions. It can honestly answer so many of the questions I'm seeing in the chat right now. Guys, we're almost at 300 likes. We are about to cross 150. Hit the like button on the YouTube live, and when we get there, we got way over 300 people tuned in right now. So smash the like button and come to the YouTube live stream. You can see my top 10 tight ends, top 10 running backs, top 10 quarterbacks, top 10 wide receivers, top 10 picks against the spread this week. And I can't show that on TikTok. It just does not have that functionality. All right, guys, we're getting close. We're getting closer and closer to kickoff, like an hour and a half away from kickoff right now. And I'm in Arizona in the rain. I'm doing this in the rain. Luckily, we're under a little bit of cover, so we should be fine in terms of the computer. But we are doing this live in the rain, week 2. And honestly, I thrive in the rain. I do. I've always loved the rain. So I am feeling good about this week. All right. Chase Edmonds, Mike Davis, Tyson Williams. We've seen a few Mike Davis questions already. I've said no, I think, to both of them so far. I would go Edmonds over Mike Davis and over Tyson Williams. I think Tyson Williams and Mike Davis are probably going to see more carries than Chase Edmonds. But Edmonds against the Jaguars, you got to love that. You got to love that matchup. Mike Davis isn't a terrible option this week. He could easily score a touchdown. Again, he's top 10 in weighted opportunities per game. Like, he has a sizable role. He's splitting it with Patterson, but he has a sizable role, especially with the carries. And he's probably going to see red zone carries today. Tyson Williams is in a great matchup too. But again, Tyson Williams, he might get less than 10 carries. He had 9 carries week 1. And there's just more and more competition brewing for him. So I really don't love Tyson Williams. He's proven me wrong 2 straight weeks over 10 fantasy points. I just don't love him. I would go Chase Edmonds. I think Tyson Williams has a really low floor, extremely low, if he doesn't score a touchdown. Should I trade for Pitts and Javonte Williams? Yeah, both these guys, both rookies are looking great. Both are going to get better too as the season goes on. This is a great time to acquire both guys. Their stock's only going up from here, really. Javonte Williams has looked great. We smashed our prop pick last week, the free player prop last week. Javonte Williams, I think it was over 48.5 or whatever it was. He smashed. He went over 60 yards. That came deep into the fourth quarter, but really never in doubt that they had the type of game script we expected. And that's why Javonte Williams cashed for us last week. And I want to give out the free player prop this week too, because I'm feeling really good about it. So smash the like button in the YouTube live. Smash the subscribe button in the YouTube live too if you aren't subscribed yet, because we do these every Sunday morning. I'm live every Thursday night, every Sunday morning. I actually went Wednesday night this week because I wanted to get that show out a little early. All right. Hey, Sam, Moore, Shepard, Jamarcus, Hollywood, pick 2. I'm assuming this is Rondale Moore because DJ Moore played Thursday night. By the way, DJ Moore absolutely balling out. Got to love the role for DJ Moore, man. Hopefully he's fully healthy too. I know he got dinged up in that game a little bit, but I would personally go with Sterling Shepard, Jamar Chase in this situation. I like Rondale Moore a lot. Again, I think that the Jaguars defense is trash. I don't want to be I want to be betting on the Cardinals against the Jaguars. And I'm in Arizona today too, so double the reason to root for the Arizona Cardinals today. They're actually my one of my locks against the spread, 7.5 points. Again, the Jaguars are trash. But Shepard and Jamar Chase are going to see a bigger role on their offensive teams today. Shepard against the Falcons, you got to love that matchup. That's why I have Sterling Shepard in my DraftKings and FanDuel lineup. And then Jamar Chase also, no T. Higgins. It's huge for Jamar Chase. I think that it's bigger for Tyler Boyd. I really do think it's bigger for Tyler Boyd. But I do like Jamar Chase more now with T. Higgins out too. So that's who I would go with in this situation. Guys, by the way, you can answer all your start sit questions in the WalterPicks app on the iOS App Store. You get completely free start sit comparisons. You can also just start a free 7-day trial. Try it out. It's going to give you projected points based on machine learning, the most accurate projections you can find. It's also going to give you boom and bust probabilities. The probability of your players going over 25 points, the probability going under 10, and that's all the information you should need to make your own start sit decisions. By the way, I want to repeat that last point. Your own start sit decisions, guys. The fun part of fantasy football, seriously, the most fun part about it is that you get to make your own decisions. So I'm going to try to give you as much information as I possibly can, and I want you guys to make the best decisions. So I'm going to give you my thoughts and my advice, but you got to go with your own decisions. You are the one who's got to win the fantasy league. It's you. So you got to make your own decision. All right. I've been asking this for 1 straight hour. Thanks for keeping asking, man. Seriously, thanks for staying tuned in. I appreciate you tuning in, and I'm going to get to as many questions as I can. I have touched on a few of these guys already, so hopefully that helped too. But Marvin Jones, Robert Woods, or Cortland Sutton in week 3. Again, I'm not benching Cortland Sutton. I refuse to bench Cortland Sutton. I think they all are good options. Honestly, Sports Savage 191, I think they're all going to do well. I do. But I'm going with Cortland Sutton, who had 250 air yards last week and is up against a bad Jet secondary. Swift or Sermon today. It's Swift. It's Swift. It's Swift. It's Swift. You have to go Swift over Sermon. You don't bench. Don't bet. There's a lot of running backs like you should not be benching this week. There's a lot of interesting running back options. Let me run through the running backs I would not bench this week really quickly because I'm seeing a lot of running back questions, and it's not surprising because there's a lot of running back value to be had this week. And there's going to be guys that I advise you to bench this week that end up doing well, but probably the larger percent of them are going to bust and just ruin weeks. All right, these are the running backs that you absolutely cannot bench this week. Derrick Henry, Alvin Kamara, Aaron Jones, obviously. Let me pull up my top 10 running back list really quick while I'm talking about this too, just to kind of support the conversation here. Let's see where this is. Here it is. My top 10 running backs, the guys that you just can't bench. Dalvin Cook is out this week. I like Alexander Madison the most out of all of the injured opportunities for running backs this week. Madison's my favorite. With Dalvin Cook out, I think you should start Alexander Madison if you had Dalvin Cook, or if you didn't and you had Madison. Derrick Henry, obviously, Alvin Kamara, Aaron Jones. You have to start Saquon Barkley this week. There's zero questions. There should be zero questions about Saquon Barkley this week. Going against the Falcons, 86% of the snaps last week on a short week is an extended week. Saquon Barkley is the lock of week 3. He's locked into all of my DraftKings lineups this week. His ceiling is just astronomical, and his floor is actually really good too. So you got to start Saquon Barkley. DeAndre Swift. You have to start DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift actually looked better as a runner in week 2, which was exciting. He has obviously excelled as a receiver in each of the first 2 games, which is exactly why we drafted him. The whole case for drafting DeAndre Swift this whole offseason is he was going to get 60 catches. He already has 12. He has 12 catches through the first 2 weeks. And that is very, very encouraging. He has run the most routes in the league at the running back position. He has the second most catches, the second most receiving yards. This is exactly why we drafted DeAndre Swift in PPR leagues. And even in non-PPR leagues, you have to start DeAndre Swift. There's no excuse to bench DeAndre Swift this week. Ezekiel Elliott, you have to start him. I know Tony Pollard's looked better, and there's some concerns, but obviously you're starting Zeke. Austin Eckler, lock him in. Honestly, I'm higher on Eckler this week than the majority of people. He wiped away all concerns about him as a receiver. He had 0 catches in week 1, the first ever career game. I think he had 0 catches, and then he comes back out, dominates as a receiver, and really just has a fantastic week 2 in the fantasy football category. He puts up the 6th most running back fantasy points in week 2 against Dallas. So I really like Austin Eckler again this week with the role he had. He had 9 targets, 9 catches. I mean, this is exactly what we wanted out of Austin Eckler. So he's another guy you're just not allowed to bench. And I'm higher on him, I think, than the majority of people out there right now. I think you have to play Joe Mixon, Chris Carson, and Najee Harris as well. All 3 of these guys are locked in to at least 15 touches, and they all could go over 25 touches. Joe Mixon, Chris Carson, Najee Harris. Honestly, Deontay Johnson being out, it's a big deal for Najee Harris too. Najee Harris has been involved as a receiver, and that's been very encouraging for Najee Harris. The whole reason for drafting Najee Harris was that he could see 300-plus carries and that he could see 60-plus receptions. And there's very few receivers you can say that about, running backs you can say that about. And then through the first 2 games, he's got 26 carries, 6 catches. He's up to 32 touches already this season. He's going to go over 300 touches this season at this rate. And he hasn't looked amazing as a receiver behind, obviously, a really suspect offensive line for the Steelers. but the role as a receiver is encouraging. 5 targets in week 2, 3 targets week 1, and he's really still not coming off the field. Fournette, no, don't start Fournette. I don't like Fournette this week. The Buccaneers game is going to be a very, very exciting game again this week. All their games are just going to be so exciting. But the Rams, I think the Rams could very much beat the Bucs in this game, and I'm rooting for the Rams in this game. I took the Rams against the spread, and I don't like Leonard Fournette against the Rams. The Rams defense is too good. You don't want to be playing your running backs against the Los Angeles Rams, especially when Ronald Jones and Giovanni Bernard could very, very, very easily be involved. So those are some running backs that you can't bench. Let me fly through this list again. Najee Harris, Chris Carson, Joe Mixon, DeAndre Swift, Saquon Barkley. Antonio Gibson is on the edge for me. You want to bench him if you can, but there's really most situations you should probably start Antonio Gibson. He could still score 2 touchdowns. He's up against the Bills, who have been the second best run defense so far this season, and they've played they played decent running backs, and they have not had good days against them. But Antonio Gibson is the focal point of the Washington offense still. So I don't hate Antonio Gibson this week. After Antonio Gibson, I think Miles Sanders is close to a must start, but he's not a must start. I do think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is a must start, though. Miles Sanders is close. Honestly, Miles Sanders is probably a must start as well. I think the end of the tier for me, though, this week, it's Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And I refuse to bench Clyde Edwards-Helaire in a game that's going to have the most points this week against the Chargers. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is seeing 85% of the touches from the Chiefs' backfield so far through the first 2 weeks. That is the 3rd highest rate in the league, top 3 in just number of touches he's getting on his team. So you got to love him as well. Guys, hit the follow button. If you're watching live on TikTok, you haven't hit the follow button yet. If you're watching live on YouTube, we're about to pass 150 likes. Come on, smash that like button. We're going to get to 300, man. We got an hour. We definitely can do it. Come to the YouTube live. I'm showing my top 10 running backs, quarterbacks, wide receivers, tight ends. I'm showing my picks against the spread. Hit the like button on the YouTube live. When we get to 300 likes, I got the free prop pick ready to go. Smash the like button on the YouTube live. The link is in the TikTok bio for everyone on TikTok. All right, let me get to some of these questions again. We got a lot of questions in the chat. CEH or Swift? Swift. It's Swift. Yeah, in this situation, Swift for sure. Swift is definitely safer than Clyde Edwards-Helaire right now. And man, I really didn't expect to say that with that much conviction at this early in the season, but he is. He's going to see targets that we just can't guarantee for CEH. So I would go DeAndre Swift. But I do like Clyde still this week. Madison or Darnell Mooney? Man, I cannot wait to see Allen Robinson and Darnell Mooney ball out with Justin Fields. It certainly, to me, raises their ceiling. I don't know if it changes their floor that much, specifically Darnell Mooney. I think Robinson has a great floor. Darnell Mooney's floor, I don't think changes that much with Justin Jefferson starting, but Justin Fields starting, Justin Fields starting, but the ceiling is there, man, and Justin Fields can really push the ball down the field. I would still go Madison. I would still start Alexander Madison over Darnell Mooney, but I am excited for Darnell Mooney. Alexander Madison's just locked in too big of a workload this week. Madison or CEH, here we are, Rhett, and I understand going Alexander Madison over Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I do. I would be fine going Alexander Madison over Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Does it make me feel good? No, it honestly makes me feel physically terrible to go with Alexander Madison over Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But you can do it. Again, Madison's my favorite guy of the backups this week. He really is. He's my favorite fringe running back 1 this week. And I think he's a pretty good value on DraftKings FanDuel in his contest as well. Because Dalvin Cook out, we can project Madison for a workhorse role. And you can't really do that for a lot of these other guys, Tyson Williams, Trey Sermon, so many other guys. You can't guarantee the workload for them, but you kind of can for Madison. And he could probably touch the ball more than Clyde this week. So I would go Madison. I'm not going to feel good about it. And I do want to start Clyde Edwards-Helaire this week. All right, Slayton or Beasley? Man, this is a very interesting one. I like Slayton against the Falcons a lot. I know Kenny Golladay dealing with an injury. He's going to be playing, though. He appears to be fully healthy for this game. And Beasley, I do think that the Bills are going to bounce back in a big way this week. I expect the Bills to have a huge day. I do. And you want to be betting on Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen to have good days today. I actually think Emmanuel Sanders is a big-time sleeper this week, too. Emmanuel Sanders is really – he's 12th in air yards in the NFL. He's running valuable routes for the Bills. And you go back and watch these Bills games, and Emmanuel Sanders is very, very close from some much bigger fantasy days. And it could be as soon as this week. Thank you for the gift, man. I do appreciate it, Cameron, in the TikTok live. The gifts are very much appreciated, guys. This is another really way that you can support me that I do very much appreciate. Sermon or Javonte Williams? I would go Javonte Williams. I would. Javonte Williams is absolutely safer than Trey Sermon. I would go Javonte Williams over Trey Sermon. I think it is close, and it won't shock me if Sermon outproduces Javonte Williams, but I want Javonte Williams for sure. Javonte Williams has looked fantastic. Hey, Sam, been here for a little while. Guys, thanks for sticking around. If you've been here for a while, I promise I'm going to try to get to as many of the questions as I can. I also built an app called WalterPicks in the iOS App Store. It can help you answer a lot of the same questions, start-sit questions, trade questions. It's got you. So download that too if in case I don't get to your question. Hey, Sam, been here for about an hour. Pick one. 10-person PPR. Allen Robinson, Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd. Yeah, we can stop there. We already set the rule. You got to start Allen Robinson. You have to start Allen Robinson in all of your fantasy leagues. Always. There's not a week that you should not start Allen Robinson, and especially in Justin Fields' first ever career start. You can lock in Allen Robinson to be the go-to guy for Justin Fields. If you are Justin Fields and you're getting your first career start, why would you not pepper Allen Robinson with targets? And then on top of that, the Bears are 7.5-point underdogs against the Browns. They're probably going to be losing in this game. The Browns are very good on all sides of the ball, but especially on offense. And we've seen their defense let up some points. Justin Fields rushing ceiling, but Allen Robinson to me is a must start in all formats, everywhere. He had 11 targets week one, only 4 a week ago. I mean, very few times have we seen Allen Robinson only get 4 targets, but he ended up scoring a touchdown in week 2 and still finished outside the top 30 wide receivers. But he's going to be fine, guys. He's going to be totally fine. You got to start Allen Robinson. I would certainly bet on a bounce back for him this week. Guys, smash the like button. Smash the subscribe button. We're already over 150 likes. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. If every single person tuned in right now took the next 5 seconds, they came to the YouTube live, they go to the TikTok bio, they click on the YouTube link, they just press literally one button, the plus with the thumb, and we get to 300 likes, we get the free player prop pick, and we all go cash it in right now. So hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, guys. I do appreciate you guys being tuned in. And seriously, a lot of you who have been around for a while too, since I've been live for like 2.5 hours now, thanks for sticking around. Seriously, I appreciate your time with me this morning. It's been a lot of fun. All right, is Broncos D valid? Is Broncos D valid? Of course. Broncos D is valid this week against the Jets. I don't think the Jets are going to be as bad as they were last week, probably all season. But still, yeah. Mooney or Laviska, please. Yeah, that's close. Laviska has the safer floor. He absolutely does. But Darnell Mooney has a significantly higher ceiling. I would be fine going with Darnell Mooney. I think Laviska Shenault's going to get at least 5 catches, but he's probably going to go to 50 yards. Again, he needs to do so much after the catch to do well for us in fantasy, which is not really what you want. So I would lean away from Laviska Shenault in that situation. Tyson or CEH? Yeah, I'm going Clyde Edwards over Tyson Williams. We're saying Alexander Madison. I would start. That's the cutoff for me. Alexander Madison, I'm starting over Clyde. I understand the process there. He should see more touches than Clyde this week, Alexander Madison. But all these other guys, all these other backups that like are splitting time or playing with result to injury, that we can't super confidently predict their volume. Guys like Kenyon Drake, who I actually have seen a surprising little amount of questions today. Guys like Leonard Fournette, Trey Sermon, Myles Gaskin, Mike Davis, Javonte Williams, Tyson Williams, Sony Michelle. All these guys I would not be starting over Clyde Edwards-Lair. I would not start any of those guys over Clyde Edwards-Lair. None of them. Zero. Again, I'll go through that list again. I wouldn't start Kenyon Drake, Damien Harris. I wouldn't start Leonard Fournette, Trey Sermon, Myles Gaskin, Mike Davis, Javonte Williams. I wouldn't start any of these guys, Tyson Williams, Sony Michelle. I wouldn't start any of them over Clyde Edwards-Lair. I understand all of them are decent starts depending on the decision you got to make. And every start this decision has 2 sides to it. But in general, I want to start Clyde, but I would play Madison over Clyde. I do think he's going to do well. Hey, Sam, how's it going? Guys, the number one way you can support me is by checking out the WalterPicks app in the iOS App Store. But if you're not going to sign up for premium, which is fine, again, we give a 7-day free trial if you want to try it out. The next best way is to toss a 5-star review. And I am a little bit more inclined to answer your question if you lead the comment off with, yeah, I already tossed you a 5-star review. Matt, first of all, thanks for sticking around, man. I do appreciate it. And we got a Jalen Rieger question in the chat. Henry Ruggs, I absolutely love this question. And this is a deep league, Matt. This is how you know you're in a very legit fantasy league. You're deciding between Jalen Rieger and you're deciding between Henry Ruggs. And honestly, I would go with Rieger in this game. Henry Ruggs had a really big game last week, and you got to feel pretty good about him coming into form a little bit. And he's really hitting stride with the deep ball. He's got 159 yards the first 2 weeks, and he's going to be a boom bust guy. Both these guys are going to be boom bust guys. He went 6 points in week 1, but 22 points in week 2 for Henry Ruggs. But you look at Jalen Rieger in this matchup again, the Cowboys secondary has let up on average 350 passing yards. Jalen Rieger, Devonta Smith, like at least one of these guys is going to just have a colossal day. It could easily be Quez Watkins, too, who we already have seen catch like an 80-yard bomb from Jalen Hurts. So, yeah, I would be going with Jalen Reagor. He's been a little bit worse to start the season, but I would go with him in this matchup. I like Jalen Reagor a lot. All right, guys, smash the like button. We're almost at 200 likes. Hit the like button. We are so close to 200 likes. I do appreciate all the support on the YouTube live stream. All right, Daniel Jones or Tannehill? Yeah, I would go Daniel Jones over Tannehill. Daniel Jones is a great streamer. There's a lot of good streaming quarterbacks this week. Daniel Jones is one of them. Again, the Falcons have stopped 0 people, unsurprisingly, at all positions, really, but quarterback included. And then on top of that, Josh Allen looked really good in primetime against Washington. He did. He looked really good. So he almost had 100 rushing yards, 97 rushing. He should have scored 2 rushing touchdowns that game. His willingness to run is very encouraging for fantasy football. Saquon. Yeah, Saquon's a lock this week, guys. You got to start Saquon Barkley in every single situation possible. I just saw Saquon Barkley and Antonio Gibson in the chat. Saquon Barkley is a must start this week. You need to start Saquon Barkley. There is 0 reason to not be starting Saquon Barkley this week. 86% snap share a week ago on a short week. Loving the app. Easy 5 stars. Nick, man, thanks, man. If you haven't checked out the WalterPicks app in the iOS App Store yet, check it out. Nick has definitely been enjoying it. Been here for 2 hours. Thanks for tuning in, man. Gibson, Sanders, Edmonds, Woods, running back slot, and flex slot. All right, Gibson, Sanders, Edmonds, Woods. I would go with Woods in the flex slot for sure, especially if this is a PPR league. And then after that, it's between Sanders and Gibson for me. I think both those guys are just a little bit safer than Edmonds, but I would probably go Sanders. I think it's a better matchup. It's close, though. Gibson, to me, is a little riskier than normal this week in a pretty tough matchup. Hey, Sam, I actually gave you a 5-star last year. Love to see that. Do a trade, Jacoby and Carson, and I give up Gibson. Yeah, that's a fair trade. Chris Carson and Tony Gibson really are very comparable, so I don't hate that trade at all. Hey, Sam, love the channel. Thanks, Tyler. Yeah, guys, if you haven't followed on TikTok yet, followed on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. You got to do that. I do appreciate it. Seriously, I have a lot of fun with this. OBJ or Mike Williams or Devonta Smith this week. Yeah, I would rule out OBJ from this one immediately. Like you have, Tyler, you have 2 great options here. So let's just see what OBJ looks like in his first game back. The Browns spread the ball out a lot. He could definitely do well, and you still want him to do well because you have him on your team, and he could still be a wide receiver 1 for you later on this season. But we already know what we're getting with Mike Williams and Devonta Smith, and it's good. It's very good. So I would cut out OBJ from this question completely. I think Mike Williams and Devonta Smith are superior to OBJ this week, especially this week with his first game back. I personally, though, would lean Mike Williams over Devonta Smith. I'm done doubting Mike Williams. I overhyped the Trevon Diggs thing last week. That was a big mistake. My biggest mistake probably of the week. Honestly, it's why my head-to-head lineups really didn't do as well as they should have. But I would go Mike Williams. I like Devonta Smith a lot, too, this week. I think they're both going to do well, and they both could go over 100 receiving yards easy. But I like Mike Williams the most. The way he's being used, it's just great. He has the 4th most catches in the league. Guys, Mike Williams has the 4th most receptions in the NFL. Like, they are using him, and he has the 2nd most targets. He's got 22 targets for the first 2 games. Devonta Smith is not seeing that type of target volume. So I would definitely go Mike Williams. But I do think they're both really good options. Guys, we're 25 likes away from 200 likes. We got way more than 25 people tuned in. The YouTube live, you can see my picks against the spread. Top 10 quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. Let me pull up the picks against the spread again here, and I'm answering as many comments as I can. Javonte Williams is a decent option this week. Alexander Madison or Antonio Gibson. Again, I said Madison over CEH, and I think Madison over Gibson is really not a stretch. I don't think it's a stretch. I personally would not do it. I would play Gibson over Madison, but I would probably advise you to play Madison, honestly. I think Madison's the safer bet over Gibson. It's really close, though. Again, Gibson has just a way tougher matchup. That's really all it is. I think that Madison could also touch the ball more than Gibson this week. It wouldn't shock me at all. All right. Getting back to really quickly, we got to really quickly refresh on all the news that's happened this morning. If you're just waking up, guys, I'm actually 3 hours behind today. I'm in Arizona. Usually I am. Let me turn off the green screen here on TikTok for a second. I'm in Arizona right now, living life. It's been a cool place to see. Arizona is 3 hours behind Boston, though. So I woke up at 4:30 a.m. Arizona time, but it was 7:30 a.m. Boston time. So I woke up at 4:30. I felt behind still. Craziness with the time zone. And we're about an hour away from football, but it's going to be like 10 a.m. here. Honestly, the timing of sports on this time zone is way better. I mean, you get to actually go to sleep. You watch the whole game and go to sleep. On the East Coast, you're literally up till midnight just to watch the full game. Here, the game's over at 8:30. It's just insane. It's great. All right, going to some of the big news of the week really quickly. High speed here, rapid fire. Deontay Johnson out. That's a big upgrade for Chase Claypool. It's a big upgrade for Juju. It's a big upgrade for Najee Harris. And it's a downgrade, guys, for the Steelers in general. Again, in a tough matchup against the Bengals, I think the Steelers win this game still. Their defense should be good, though TJ Watt inactive this week as well. I still think that they win this game, but it's a coin flip game to me. And I think the Bengals are going to try to run the ball a lot. On the other side of the ball, T. Higgins out this week. So Tyler Boyd upgraded, Jamar Chase upgraded, Joe Mixon upgraded, and the Bengals downgraded overall. It's not a good loss for the team. Matt Breida is inactive against Washington. So it looks like we're not going to see Zach Moss get random healthy scratches again this season. Russell Gage is out this week. He hasn't done much for the Falcons, but if anything, that's a boost for Kyle Pitts and Calvin Ridley. We know that DeAndre Hopkins, he's active. He was dealing with a rib injury, but he's fully active. And we've seen DeAndre Hopkins still dominate defensive backs through injuries his whole career. So don't sleep on DeAndre Hopkins this week and definitely start him everywhere. So many injuries for the Ravens. They just continue to pile up. Jimmy Smith out, Ronnie Stanley out, Derek Wolfe out, safety out. They really are missing a plethora of a lot of their talent, and not to mention their entire backfield. Tyson Williams looking like their number one back heading into this week. But all that being said, the Ravens are going to almost definitely win this game against the Lions, but they're only 7-point favorites. I actually took the Lions as 8. I think his spread was 8. I think I took the Lions +8 in this game. Kenny Golladay, he's expected to play today, but a report this morning, Kenny Golladay is expected to see reduced snaps. And that info came directly from the Giants wide receiver coach. New York's getting Evan Ingram back in this game, which also Evan Ingram in a great matchup against the Falcons have stopped no tight ends this season. So he actually has sneaky upside this week. But Darius Slayton, Sterling Shepard are, probably going to be pretty predominant in this game, but I think it's going to be Saquon Barkley game. I'm all in on Saquon this week. Adam Schefter reports Andy Dalton could miss an additional week or two, depending on how quickly he recovers. And guys, Andy Dalton's never starting a game for the Bears again. And if he does, it's a colossal mistake by Matt Nagy and the entire organization. And you're going to see why this week. You're going to see why next week. It's nothing against Andy Dalton. I really do hope he gets back. And I honestly thought Andy Dalton was a upgrade from what they had a season ago. I thought they could win games with Andy Dalton. Justin Fields is just way better. And Justin Fields is just so dynamic with his legs that you're just going to watch him one game and he's going to keep it close against a very good Browns team. And then you just can never bench Justin Fields again. He's going to go on to have an amazing career. I really do like Justin Fields a lot. I thought he was slept on the whole draft process. He fell in the draft because it was like epilepsy or something. He had epilepsy, but he's had it his whole life and he's played through it his whole life and he's won at every level and dominated at every level his entire life. Justin Fields checked every single box as a prospect. There was not a single box he did not check other than, he has had epilepsy from a young age, which means nothing for football. I don't know. Justin Fields is going to be good. He should have gotten picked much earlier. I like him this week. The Colts, Carson Wentz playing on what was 2 sprained ankles a week ago. I mean, crazy that he's suiting up. I really hope he gets through this whole game healthy. The Colts offensive line is very injured, and it's been a problem for Carson Wentz, but Carson Wentz is a guy that really does succeed more when he is able to be mobile, and he's just not going to be able to move today. That's why I'm taking the Titans -5.5. It's my lock of the day in terms of spreads. Lamar Jackson dealing with an illness, non-COVID related, obviously, but he's expected to play. Obviously, he's going to play, and he's going to do very well. Darrell Henderson out, not expected to play in week 3 against the Buccaneers, and this is going to be a huge opportunity for Sony Michelle to really carve out a role in this team, and he could keep a role on this team moving forward. It's really bad news for Darrell Henderson because he was getting really, really good volume before this injury, and you got to think they're going to scale it back a little after the injury. But Sony Michelle, he can be started this week, though. Jake Funk is going to be involved, and Sony Michelle is going to need to score a touchdown to have a good fantasy day. So he's probably one of my least favorite of the value running backs that are available this week. Dalvin Cook, we already mentioned this, unlikely to play. Alexander Madison, I'm starting him over Clyde Edwards Lair. I think I'd start him over Antonio Gibson. He's good. You got to start Alexander Madison this week. All right. JaMychal Hasty out. Somehow JaMychal Hasty out, Elijah Mitchell out, and then obviously Raheem Mostert out. It's just so many injuries for the 49ers. They didn't want Trey Sermon to be a thing, but Trey Sermon is going to be a thing. Trey Sermon is good, and he was a good prospect coming out of college. He is by far the most talented running back for the 49ers today. It's honestly not particularly close. But we're talking about Kyle Shanahan here, and there's a chance that we see Trey Sermon get under 10 carries. I mean, that's well within his range of outcomes. I think the ceiling's really high, though, for Trey Sermon. He was good in college. He really doesn't have that breakaway speed that you like in running backs, but he averaged 7.5 yards per carry at Ohio State, and he really is just a pounder. He falls forward. He's very quick with his cutting. I like him a lot. And he was one of my favorite running backs coming out of this class. All right. Najee, Chase Edmonds, Antonio Gibson, choose one. Yeah, Sean, thanks for the 5-star review in the iOS App Store, by the way. We're almost at 200 likes, guys. Smash the like button on the YouTube live. We are almost at 200 likes. We're 12 likes away. Just hit that like button. It takes you 2 seconds. It helps me out a ton. And a 5-star review in the iOS App Store for the WalterPicks app also helps me out tremendously. Like, it takes you like 2 minutes. It actually helps me out so much. I do appreciate it. All the support. Seriously, appreciate you guys just tuning in and spending this time with me. Najee Harris, though, is a lock here, Sean. You have to start Najee Harris this week. Again, Deontay Johnson's out. That's good news for Najee Harris specifically. He's probably going to see another 5 targets this week. Could easily see another 15, 20 carries, depending on how the game goes, too. He has a tremendous upside and a pretty good floor. That's why you drafted Najee Harris in the first place. You got to start Najee Harris in this situation. This one's pretty easy for me. All right. Love the app. Thanks, man. Harris or Sermon or Michelle? Yeah, I've seen it. So let me address these running backs again. I think that in order from the backup, like fringe, running back 1, running back 2, running backs that are really going to get an opportunity today. Madison's my favorite by far. I think Madison's by far my favorite. Honestly, Tyson Williams is probably next, but Tyson Williams, Sony Michelle, Trey Sermon, they're all very similar tier for me. I think they're startable, definitely startable. But in most situations, like Madison's the only one I'm going to start over Gibson. Madison's the only one I'm going to start over Clyde. I really don't want to start a lot of these guys. I would go with Antonio Gibson versus Chase Edmonds versus Najee Harris. Definitely Najee. But if it was just Chase Edmonds and Antonio Gibson, I'd probably lean Chase Edmonds over Antonio Gibson too against the Jaguars. Chase Edmonds is in a pretty good spot. One guy we haven't talked about this week that I'm nervous about, by the way, Myles Gaskin. I think you should be concerned about Myles Gaskin and the whole Dolphins offense. With no Tua, Jacoby Brissett is not going to be good news for Myles Gaskin. It really isn't. And he's seen significantly less volume than last season already. Miles Sanders or DeAndre Swift? Yeah, Swift. You got to start Swift. You have to start Swift, especially if it's a PPR league. Need an Android app. I know, man. I know. God, we are seriously working around the clock on the WalterPicks app. It's my full-time job now. I work close to 80 hours a week. It was actually closer to 100 hours a week last year because I was working 2 full-time jobs as a high school math teacher and doing this. Now it's close to 80 hours a week. But we are really close to the Android app, and I'm super excited about it. I really am. And I'm hoping that we have my goal. I told a lot of people this, and my development team was not super pleased with me that I set the timeline. And I got to preface this with, this is not a guaranteed timeline, but my goal was week 5 of the NFL season this year for the iOS app, for the Android app, excuse me. So that's still the goal. Probably a little optimistic at this point, but we will have the Android app. It's always been a question of when, not if, for the Android app. So it's coming, man. Just sub, Brandon. Thank you, man. Hit the subscribe button on YouTube, and I do appreciate that. Mooney or Osborne? I would go Mooney. I want nothing to do with Osborne. KJ Osborne to me is completely off my radar. And yeah, he's had 2 good weeks, but he's the number 3 passing option in what could be a run-heavy team. Like, I don't want KJ Osborne and his 0 points in my fantasy lineup because that's his floor. That's Osborne's floor, 0 points. All right. I want to get to this question. Spencer, what's your DFS lineup today? Yeah, I went through the DraftKings lineup a little earlier, but let's just run through it really quickly one more time because I'm in a high-stakes head-to-head DraftKings league. I'm 2-0 in this league so far. I finished top 5 in the league each of the last 2 seasons, and I'm liking my lineup a lot today. Starting at the quarterback position, I'm locking in Kyla Murray. I want to play Justin Fields. I think Justin Fields is probably the best cash game quarterback this week, but with how this lineup ended up constructing, I just had plenty of salary left over because there's so much value at other positions this week that I'm just going to lock in the 20-plus fantasy points from Kyla Murray. He's actually gone over 30 in each of his first 2 games. The floor and ceiling are just so high for Kyla Murray against the Jaguars. So I'm feeling very good about getting him into all my head-to-head lineups. Though I think Justin Fields is the second best option if you're going to pay down at quarterback and pay up to get other positions. The running back lock of the week, though, for me, it's Sequon Barkley. Sequon Barkley, to me, is the lock of week 3. 86% of the snaps last week. He has much more rest coming into this week against a far worse defense. There's going to be some massive Saquon Barkley plays in this game. I expect him to score at least 1 touchdown in this game. I think he's going to have a huge day. So I'm putting him into all my DraftKings lineups too. And then the one guy that a lot of people are going to want to fade for me this week. Like, I'm sure a lot of people are liking this lineup so far. Kyla Murray, Saquon Barkley. But now Clyde Edwards-Lair is next. And the thing about Clyde Edwards-Lair and his pricing this week on DraftKings is just he's priced too low. No matter what you think about Clyde Edwards-Lair, and I understand a lot of people really, he's not that good. He doesn't look like a super talented running back. And the Chiefs scored over 30 points last week. And Clyde Edwards-Lair had under 5 fantasy points. Like, how is that even possible, Clyde Edwards-Lair? And he fumbled the game away too which left an even more sour taste in everyone's mouth. But then you go look at the running back pricing this week on DraftKings, and you just got to keep scrolling down and down and down and down to find where Clyde Edwards-Lair is. He's all the way down at 4,800. Jeremy McNichols cost the same amount as Clyde Edwards-Lair this week. Sony Michelle costs more than Clyde Edwards-Lair this week. Clyde Edwards-Lair is seeing 85% of the touches for the best offense in the NFL, and I just can't not play him at that price. That's my take for Clyde this week. I would start him in most situations. I actually do think Madison is a better option than Clyde this week, but Madison's priced pretty high. He's at 6,000. He's probably going to get played a lot, but I do like Clyde Edwards-Lair. Madison also has a really good matchup, guys. The Seahawks defense has not stopped running backs at all. They've been absolutely torched by running backs so far this season. They've allowed the most fantasy points per game to running backs this season. That's the Seattle Seahawks. So that bodes really well for Alexander Madison. Let me pull up the running back stats against the Seahawks so far. We got Jonathan Taylor put up 56 yards, but he also had 6 catches for 60 yards, 17 fantasy points. Nyheim Hines, 14 fantasy points. Derrick Henry obviously is a big part of this. He had 182 yards and 55 receiving yards, 52 fantasy points for Derrick Henry. I actually think the league settings I'm in right now are a little bit different, but he scored a lot of points regardless of your league in week 2. And that's who Alexander Madison gets this week against the Seattle Seahawks. I still don't think I would start, my studs over Alexander. I would start Alexander Madison over my studs, but I would play him over Clyde, and I would play him over Antonio Gibson. I think that's like the line for me this week. All right, let's get back to the rest of this lineup. So Kyla Murray, Saquon Barkley, Clyde Edwards-Lair at the wide receiver position. So many good wide receivers this week. A.J. Brown is priced at 6,500. Cortland Sutton hit 250 air yards last week in 1 week. In that one game with Jerry Jeudy out. Feel really good about Sutton and A.J. Brown this week. But my favorite guy in this lineup, honestly, is Kyle Pitts. I'm all in on Saquon this week. And if there's any guy I'm more all in on other than Saquon, it's Kyle Pitts. He's going to have a big day against a Giants defense that's struggled against tight ends so far. And Kyle Pitts, he almost had to fail in terms of his expectations for the season. He was ranked as a top 5 tight end as a rookie, just insane. But he still has a really good ceiling, and he's seeing volume. He's seeing 6+ targets in each game. Is Dalvin Cook out? Yes, Dalvin Cook is out. Deontay Johnson out. T. Higgins out. Darrell Henderson out. There's a lot of injuries to be aware of this week. And honestly, I think one of the biggest edges in the vast majority of fantasy leagues these days is just understanding who's out and how that's going to impact the game. That's like the biggest thing. And we'll talk about that a lot. All right. Put 5-star review. Joey Watkins, man. Thank you. I do appreciate that. And I appreciate you staying tuned in. Guys, if you haven't hit the like button on the YouTube live yet, when we get to, we're going to lower the bar just a tiny bit. I do want to get to the free player prop. So we're going to do 250 likes. I started the stream a little late, so I think I'll take some blame for that with the added time zone. No excuses, man. The 250 likes, we'll give away the free player prop. But pick 2, Saquon, Antonio Gibson. It's Saquon and Jonathan Taylor, 100%. I mean, Antonio Gibson just has a much scarier matchup this week. So I would definitely go with Saquon and Antonio Gibson in that situation. All right, the rain is coming down, guys, but I think we are relatively well covered. So we're gonna keep going with the stream, and I really do hope my computer makes it out okay, because I'm definitely gonna need it today. All right, getting back to some of the questions. By the way, guys, we're 40 likes away on the YouTube live from a free player prop pick. So come click the link in the bio if you're watching live on TikTok, watching live on YouTube. It takes 2 seconds to hit that like button. Really quickly. The rest of the lineup, though, so A.J. Brown, Cortland Sutton, Kyle Pitts, and then I'm getting Sterling Shepard. Apparently, Kenny Golladay is going to see a decreased number of routes today for whatever reason. He's battling an injury. I'm sure the coaching staff is also not very happy with his attitude so far on the sidelines. But I'm going with Sterling Shepard, who's been the clear number 1 receiver for the Giants, and I like stacking in this Giants game. I'm going with Saquon Barkley and Sterling Shepard and Kyle Pitts. I think that gives me a good floor and ceiling. Because this game could be one of the most high-scoring games of the week, with 2 offenses pushing the ball downfield and 2 defenses just not able to stop anyone. All right, pick 3, Lockett, Debo, Sutton, A-Rob, A.J. Brown. Yeah, A.J. Brown, Lockett, Debo. You can't bench a lot of these guys. Allen Robinson, Debo Samuel. I would probably honestly go Debo Samuel. I don't think you can bench Debo Samuel. You just can't. He's the most received guys in the league right now. You cannot bench Debo Samuel. Don't bench him. You got to ride the hot streak till it ends. Hey, Sam, love the channel and just subscribed. Thanks, Ty. I'm in a hole. I'm in a 20-man league. Wow, love that. That's a deep league. With friends and with Josh Jacobs out, my running backs are limited. Do I play Dillon or Barber? Also Waddle or Osborne? Yeah, you can't feel very good about Jalen Waddle this week. Will Fuller returning. Jacoby Brissett at quarterback. but I like him more than Osborne still. I would still play him over Osborne. He's just way more talented than Osborne. And Jalen Waddle's still probably going to be a part of the game plan. He's looked good so far. At the running back position, though, I'd probably go A.J. Dillon over Peyton Barber, and you're not going to feel good about that either. 20-man league, though, you got to do what you got to do. And A.J. Dillon is significantly better than Peyton Barber, and he also has a better chance at a touchdown. Barber is probably going to score less than 4 fantasy points this week. He's just not a guy I want anywhere near my fantasy lineups. So I would go with A.J. Dillon. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We're almost at 250 likes on the YouTube Live. When we get there, we're going to be giving out a free player prop pick, and I am very, very excited for week 3 to begin. We are 45 minutes away. I'm chilling in the rain in Arizona right now. We are live in the rain right now out in Arizona, and we're hoping that the computer makes it through. I think it's struggling just a tiny bit right now. Hopefully there's no actual damage. We are going to get to some more of the comments, and I want to talk about Tony Pollard. I'm seeing Tony Pollard versus Trey Sermon. Yeah, I would go Trey Sermon there. Pollard's good, and he does have standalone value already. He has standalone value 100%, but I would still like to play a guy that has really high touch ceiling, which is Trey Sermon over Tony Pollard. I think I would go with Trey Sermon there. Herb or Jones? Yeah, so if we take a look at my top 10 quarterbacks really quick on the YouTube live stream, and I have a lot of guys really close together this week. I do like a lot of quarterbacks, but you got to start Lamar Jackson, Kyla Murray, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen. There should be zero questions about any of those quarterbacks really any given week. Why'd you spend such an early pick on those guys if you're not going to start them? You have to start them. They regardless of matchup too. And a lot of them have really good matchups today, but regardless of matchup, Kyla Murray, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, you got to start them every single week. But after that, Jalen Hurts and Justin Herbert, super close in my rankings today. I like Jalen Hurts a little bit more than Justin Herbert. I think they're both going to do well. I think Justin Herbert's going to go over 300 passing yards today against, a really not good secondary for the Cowboys that he's up against. So I do like him a lot today. Sorry, not against the Cowboys. They played the Cowboys last week against the Chiefs. I think that they're going to put up yards. The Chiefs secondary really has not been as good as you would have hoped. 5-star, Sam. Thanks, Andrew Clark. Najee, CEH, or Madison today? Najee. It's Najee. Najee 100% over all those guys. Najee Harris should not be not be benched at all this week in any platform. And Clyde, I am starting in most situations. I want to start Clyde Edwards Lair, but I'm fine if I bench Clyde for Alexander Madison. I certainly would play Miles Sanders over Clyde Edwards Lair. I think it's close for a lot of guys. I would not be starting Trey Sermon, though, or Sony Michelle, or Tyson Williams over Clyde. I refuse to do that. And I do have Clyde in my DraftKings lineup today as well. Guys, we are closing in on 250 likes. And honestly, right now, you are in a race against the rain pouring down on my computer. So we got to get to 250 likes so I can get the free player prop pick out before we just go, we flatline on this computer. And honestly, I'm due for a new computer anyway. So maybe this is actually a blessing in disguise for this rain. And actually, I do thrive in the rain. I love the rain. So I'm feeling good about this week and doing well in week 3. Rondale Moore, Darnell Mooney. Rondale Moore is the floor play 100%. Darnell Mooney still has a really low floor. He still has a really low floor. Darnell Mooney's floor is under 5 fantasy points. It is. The ceiling is higher this week, though, with Justin Fields. So make no mistake about that. I would still go Rondale Moore, though. Rondale Moore has a really high ceiling, too. So I would go with him. All right. Hey, Sam, been here since the beginning of the live. Jose, man, and already gave a 5-star review in the App Store. You are the man, Jose. Thanks for tuning in. Madison, Devonta Smith, Boyd, KJ Osborne, or Gibson starting 2. Yeah, Madison, I think it stands out pretty clearly in this list that you got to start him. I already said I would start Madison over Gibson. I think it's close, but I would start Madison over Gibson. The rest of the guys, though, really, really tough calls. And I actually think the safest floor, I think, on this list is either Madison or Boyd. I think, again, Boyd, there's no T. Higgins. He's up against the Steelers defense that funnels passes to the slot. Tyler Boyd's going to get a minimum 5 catches, minimum. So you're already locking in a floor of 7 fantasy points minimum for Tyler Boyd this week, which is good. And I don't think any of the other guys other than Madison have that type of floor. But Devonta Smith is a guy you really want to play today. Osborne should not be in this question, by the way. Definitely don't play Osborne, KJ Osborne, over any of these guys if anyone's thinking about something similar. I don't want anything to do with KJ Osborne. Seriously, he just seems like such an obvious boom bust guy that just happened to have 2 boom games to start the season and just will not be consistent at all. That's the 3rd receiving option on a run first team. So I would probably go Madison, Devonta Smith, though. I like Boyd a lot too. It depends if you're going for floor and ceiling. I mean, the ceiling for Devonta Smith this week, 100 yards, multiple touchdowns. That's a ceiling. But I would probably go Boyd, Madison for the floor, or Madison and Smith for the ceiling. But I think this is an okay week to bench Antonio Gibson, though I do like him this week too. I think these are all pretty good options, other than Osborne. Claypool or Marvin Jones? Claypool is really, to me, the most valuable Steelers wide receiver in all fantasy formats right now. Deontay Johnson is the clear wide receiver 1. And so I think there's a good argument to be made he's the most valuable. But Chase Claypool is running a much more valuable role in the offense for fantasy football purposes. Chase Claypool leads the league in deep targets per game. He leads the league. He's seen 6 deep targets. He's the 4th most air yards in the NFL. And then you look at Juju and Deontay Johnson, and both of them are just like running these little dingy routes that's what Big Ben needs. But Chase Claypool's like a very good deep threat. And he's top 5 in the league in air yards. He's leading the league in deep targets per game. He's going to have some massive games. And why not this week against a Bengals team that's really not that intimidating? I like Claypool a lot here, and I would go with Claypool in this situation. I like Claypool a lot in tournaments too on DraftKings FanDuel this week. I actually think his props are pretty interesting as well. I don't like betting on Big Ben. That's the scariest part about all these receivers for the Steelers. I don't want to bet on Big Ben doing well because he really is at the end of his career. But Claypool is running such a valuable route tree that you got to start him. All right. Hey, Sam, I need your help. Start 2 out of 3. A-Rob, DK, Mark. Yeah, it's first two, easy savior. Don't overthink the Marquise Brown thing. He's been great, which is awesome for your fantasy team. But you can't bench Allen Robinson. You're not allowed to bench DK Metcalf either. So that one's actually pretty straightforward for me as well. All right, getting back to some of the Cardinals questions. We're out in Arizona right now in the rain. Man, you got the palm tree behind me at least. But we are in the rain, and I cannot wait to watch the Arizona Cardinals live from Arizona because they're on the road, but they're going to destroy the Jaguars, guys. I love them against the spread. Let me pull up my picks against the spread again for everyone that's tuned in on the YouTube live stream. And you look at my picks against the spread, and one of my locks is the Cardinals minus 7.5 against the Jaguars. Odd question though. Should I start D-Hop or Rondo Moore? Yeah, you have Andrew. You got to start DeAndre Hopkins. I know he has been practicing. Rondo Moore has more targets than DeAndre Hopkins through the first 2 weeks, which that's not going to continue. Obviously, there's no way Rondo Moore ends up with more targets than a healthy DeAndre Hopkins this season, but you can't bench DeAndre Hopkins. All that being said, Madison or Rondo Moore or Trey Sermon. I would probably lean Madison here. Again, Madison's a really good option this week. He's going up against the Seahawks defense that's just allowed 5 million fantasy points to Derrick Henry, and they also let up 17 fantasy points to Jonathan Taylor in week 1, even though he didn't even score a touchdown. They are very susceptible to running back targets. Derrick Henry had one of his best receiving days, low-key, in that game. A monster running day, 35 carries. But he also had one of his best receiving games, actually, of his career. So I like Madison a lot today. I would start him in this situation. I like all 3 of these guys. I would rank these guys, though, Madison, then Rondo Moore, then Trey Sermon. Trey Sermon's risky. Know what you're doing with Trey Sermon, guys. He's very risky. I think he has a ceiling, though. I do think he has a pretty good ceiling. All right. Shepard or Smith, half PPR. I would go with Sterling Shepard over Devonta Smith. I would, especially honestly, in a standard league, I feel like Devonta Smith actually gets a little bump because Sterling Shepard is going to probably get more catches than Devonta Smith, but I still like Devonta Smith. I like Devonta Smith's ceiling. I feel like Shepard, though, has a similar ceiling. He's playing the Falcons. So, like, he also has a really good matchup. Both have a really good matchup. And Sterling Shepard also is, like, he's going to see more targets. So I would probably go Sterling Shepard. All right. But I don't want to bench Devonta Smith, by the way. I mean, there's not a single receiver I drafted more of in Fantasyland than Devonta Smith. And I've got to love the start that he's had. And I think he could have a huge day. But I like Sterling Shepard more. I'm starting Sterling Shepard in my DraftKings league over Devonta Smith. Gave a 5-star review. Thanks, man. Kenneth, I appreciate that. Edmonds or Shepard? I would lean Shepard here, too. Shepard's in such a good spot this week against the Falcons. You really got to like what you've seen out of him so far this season. He really has done nothing wrong. All he's done is ball out. He's been the clear number 1 receiver for the Giants. And so I like him. I'm starting him in my DraftKings lineup this week, too. Him and Saquon. So I like that a lot. Guys, we're so close to 250 likes. Smash the like button. We're racing against the rain right now, infiltrating my computer. And if we can get to the free prop pick before the computer dies, I think that would be ideal. So smash the like button. We're like 10 likes away. Smash the like button. We've got way more than 10 people tuned in on the YouTube live. Link is in the TikTok bio. Sorry, I know my screen is a little high right there. Madison or CH? Yeah, I'm going Madison over CH, and I do not feel good about it. I don't feel good about it. I want to play Clyde over Madison, but you can't. You really can't. So I would go with Alexander Madison over Clyde Edwards Lair. Though I do want to start Clyde in a lot of situations, and I am playing in my DraftKings league. And I think he's going to bounce back, whether it's this week or just long term. He's on the best offense in the NFL. He saw 85% of their touches through the first 2 weeks. He's going to score touchdowns. It's not that hard. Fantasy football doesn't need to be that hard. People are overreacting about Clyde, but I'd still play Madison over him. That's how bad he's been. I mean, like, to some extent, you can't feel great about what Clyde's done, and I don't feel good about what Clyde's done, but the peripheral numbers are still there and a good offense. So Madison this week, Clyde, though, definitely long-term. Pick 2, please. Tony Pollard, Jamar Chase, Devonta Smith, or Trey. Yeah, Jamar Chase and Devonta Smith, for sure. Do I start Saquon this week? Yes. Saquon Barkley is the lock of week 3. You have to start Saquon Barkley. You have to start Saquon Barkley. Do not bench Saquon Barkley. Woods or Rondale Moore. I would probably go with Robert Woods against the Buccaneers. Those games have been shootouts for the Bucs so far, but it's close, man. Again, Rondale Moore's been great, and he somehow has more targets than DeAndre Hopkins. But I would still go away from him in that spot. Guys, we're 10 likes away from 250. Then we're going to give away the free player prop pick of the day. We're 2 out of 3 this season. In my lifetime of these live streams, I believe we are like 19 out of 21 giving away free player prop picks. Maybe 19 out of 22 because we missed one this season. 19 out of 22 over the last 2 years with the free prop picks on these streams. Thanks for hooking it up with the 5-star reviews, by the way, guys. I really love seeing those. It helps out so much, and I really do appreciate you taking the time to do that in the iOS App Store. But yeah, guys, Saquon Barkley is the lock of the week. If you answer, I'll like. So thoughts on Hollywood? Yeah, I think Hollywood. Brown. You gotta love what you're seeing from him so far this season. I think he's gonna have inconsistent weeks because they just don't throw the ball very much for the Ravens. Going to be the number 1 rushing team again this season, and that's not great news for Marquise Brown. But the role you're seeing from Marquise Brown, you got to absolutely love, and he's seeing volume. He's seeing a pretty good target share. Again, they don't throw the ball that much, so it means a little bit less. But he has the 4th highest target share in the league. He's seeing 30% of the Ravens' targets. He has 6+ targets in each of the first 2 games, over 60 yards each game, touchdown each game. Like, he's done really well. You want to start Marquise Brown. But I actually don't love him this week against the Lions. I think that the Ravens are just going to run the ball so much. I prefer Devonta Smith over him, Jamar Chase over him, Sterling Shepard over him all this week. So it's close. Laviska Shenault or James Robinson? Definitely James Robinson for me over Laviska Shenault. And I know James Robinson's been a tough guy to have on your fantasy teams so far, but I would still go with James Robinson in that situation. All right. We are about to click 250 likes. We did it. 250 likes on the YouTube live. All right, let's do the free prop pick. I got like 10, 15 minutes left in the stream. I'm going to try to get to as many questions as I can. But again, in the WalterPicks app on the iOS App Store, you can answer so many of these questions. Start-sit questions, straight questions, everything you need to know, DraftKings, FanDuel advice, player props. All of it is in the WalterPicks app, free 7-day trial. And the number 1 way you can help me out is checking it out. So I do appreciate that. But the free player prop pick of the day, A.J. Brown, over 62.5 receiving yards. I was flabbergasted when I saw this line, and after crunching the numbers and seeing A.J. Brown's historical performances, he has never had 3 bad games in a row. Certainly, that does not mean it's not impossible. And the only thing I'm concerned about with A.J. Brown over 62.5 receiving yards this week is Tannehill and the offensive line, because we've already been crushed by that once. So I really don't want to get crushed by that twice. But there's so much looking up for A.J. Brown. He's seeing 8 targets a game. That's more targets per game than he saw a season ago. So the volume is up. The production is down. The production is going to turn around for A.J. Brown. So lock in A.J. Brown, guys, with confidence. 62.5 receiving yards. He is the free prop pick of the day. You can find this one on Prize Picks. I think Underdog has a pretty good A.J. Brown prop today too. DraftKings, FanDuel, BetMGM, all of them have it at 62.5 today. This is a mistake. A.J. Brown could easily go over 100 yards today, and you just look at games with 8+ targets for A.J. Brown, which is what he's averaging this season, and he's seen 8 targets in each game. He's seen at least 8 targets in each game this season. And when you look at his averages in games with 8+ targets, he's averaging 97 yards a game. A.J. Brown is not to be overlooked, especially this week in a pretty solid matchup. So I'm going with A.J. Brown with confidence. You look at the matchup for A.J. Brown against the Colts. Cooper Kupp and Tyler Lockett both went over 100 yards against this team. You can get receivers over 100 yards against the Colts. A.J. Brown, I think he's going to do it today. So A.J. Brown over 62.5 receiving yards. Lock it in to your prop picks today. A.J. Brown over 62.5. Would you start Hopkins? Yeah, you got to start Hopkins. Miles Sanders or Darrell Henderson? I would go Miles Sanders. Darrell Henderson is not playing today. Deontay Johnson not playing today. T. Higgins not playing today. Darrell Henderson, you got to get him out of your lineups. By the way, Tua also not playing today. That's really bad news for the Dolphins. Sterling Shepard or Marvin Jones. Yeah, I would go Shepard there. I would go Shepard. I like Shepard a lot today. I think he's a really safe option. All right. I want to quickly run through my picks against the spread one more time. I will try to get to as many comments as I can as well. We are nearing the end of the live stream, though, guys. I've been live for like 3 hours, and it's only 10 a.m. where I am. It's 9:30 a.m. in Arizona right now. I mean, the time difference in terms of when football starts really is really crazy. I can't wait to watch football on my screen this early in the day. All right, hey, Sam, hooked it up with a 5-star review. Thank you so much, man. Amari Cooper, Juju, Mike Williams, Julio, and I'm assuming that is Jonathan Taylor. You have to start Jonathan Taylor. You have to start Amari Cooper, and honestly, it's Mike Williams. I think that's not that hard. Julio's the tough one to leave out. I'm not in love with Juju this week. I would probably go Julio and Juju on the bench in this situation, though. Thanks for asking the question. Thanks for tuning in. Had your app for 2 years now. Great stuff. Evan, thank you, man. Yeah, if you haven't checked out the WalterPicks app yet, guys, not too late to start the 7-day free trial. You're going to get 7 free prop picks in the Walter free trial. You're going to get DraftKings, FanDuel advice, last-minute start-sit advice as well. All right, let's get to this question, though. James Robinson or Trey Sermon? Yeah, man. James Robinson's tough. I would still go James Robinson. I think James Robinson actually had a pretty encouraging week 2. He has the receiving role. He has the receiving role for the Jaguars over Carlos Hyde. I would go James Robinson, but it is really close, and I won't be surprised when Trey Sermon outscores him. So I would argue, though, he has a much safer floor in a similar ceiling. I think the floor for Sermon's really low. Can you repeat your DFS lineup one more time? Yeah, really quickly. DFS lineup one last time. See if I can remember it off the top of my head because I've said it so many times. Kyla Murray at quarterback. Saquon Barkley, this is DraftKings. Saquon Barkley at running back, along with Clyde Edwards Lair at running back, priced below Jeremy McNichols this week. I mean, come on. The disrespect to Clyde this week was just asinine. He's not the most talented player, but he's seeing 85% of the touches in the best offense in the NFL. That's the third highest rate in the league, 85%. So, yeah, I like him a lot at his price. So, Kyler, Saquon, Clyde, and then I'm going Sterling Shepard, Cortland Sutton. I think I'm blinking on the third. Oh, A.J. Brown, obviously, over 62.5 receiving yards. A.J. Brown is in that lineup too. Kyle Pitts at tight end. And then I'm going with the Titans at defense. And I actually think I got Tyler Boyd potentially in there too. I think Tyler Boyd's a really safe bet in head-to-head contest. Guys, I can't wait to watch Justin Fields ball out today. I really can't wait to see his first career start. I think he's going to do very well. And if I pull up my picks against the spread one more time, you can see them at the bottom of the YouTube live. Hey, Sam, I need to know Corey Davis or Laviska. Yeah, you can't start Corey Davis after last week. You really can't. Jameson Lee Crowder returning. You cannot start Corey Davis this week. He's a must bench. And, man, we missed that prop last week too. I really liked Corey Davis, and he struggled in that game against the Patriots. There was at least one of those interceptions was Corey Davis's fault. At least one. There was probably 2 you could credit to Corey Davis in that game. Not great for Corey Davis. All right. Marlon Mack is inactive for the game today. That's a good vote of confidence for Jonathan Taylor. Nyheim Hines, I think that gives them a little bit of a bump. This news just coming in. Let me take a quick look at, make sure we didn't miss any other news. Ramondre Stevenson inactive again. Yeah, guys, Ramondre Stevenson fumbled his first ever carry for the Patriots. Like, we might never see him again. It's just brutal. And I think that's all the consequential news. Dalvin Cook, unlikely to play. I guess that hasn't been officially reported, but it seems like he's going to be out today. Tyson Williams or definitely Alexander Madison over Tyson Williams for me. Guys, Alexander Madison's a running back one this week. He's up against the Seahawks team that just let up 5 million points to Derrick Henry. And I know Madison's not Henry, but they've also allowed just a ton of receptions to receivers. All right, really quick, getting to some of the final questions here. Hopkins, Lamb, Sutton, Shepard, Debo. Yeah, first 3 you have to start. Honestly, I'd probably go Hopkins, Lamb, Debo, though. I would probably bench in this situation Sutton, but it's tough. I don't want to bench Sutton or Debo Samuel. Fellow teacher here. Wow, thanks for tuning in, man. Been here since the start. Appreciate you, Alexander. I do miss the classroom a lot, but I've enjoyed focusing all of my attention on just one thing, too. I think that it's been kind of a really great for me. Should I start Pittman, Hunt, or Christian Kirk, or Corey Davis, pick 2? Yeah, I would probably go the first 2. I really don't want to start Corey Davis at all this week. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm going to end this live stream on the YouTube, as always. So we're going to be wrapping up the TikTok stream. Come to the YouTube live if you have not yet. And you get your final questions answered. We're going to go rapid fire in the YouTube live for the next 5-10 minutes to try to get every start-sit question answered. So come to the YouTube live. Link is in the TikTok bio, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. All right, guys, we are live just on YouTube. Guys, the rain's coming down, and I got to make a judgment call very soon because I honestly think I'm impressed my laptop has made it this far. So I'm gonna answer as many comments as I can in the next 5 minutes. Then we will wrap up, guys. It's gonna be great, fantastic week 3. Honestly, the rain, I think, is a very, very good sign for us. All right, pick one. Dak, Tannehill, Keenan, Allen, or Scary Terry. Yeah, I would go Dak and Keenan, 100,000%. All right, McLaren or tough matchup over Rondo. No, you can't bet Terry McLaren. Zeke or Darrell Henderson. Zeke, definitely. Come on. Kareem Hunt, Rondo. I would probably go Darrell Henderson's out. Zeke, Kareem Hunt, Rondo Moore. Dalvin Cook is out too. So that's actually pretty easy one. Sam, I need your help. These are my wide receivers in PPR. I need to start 3. Hopkins, Lamb, Sutton, Shepard, Debo. Yeah, again, tough choices. You got to start Hopkins. You have to start Lamb. And then it's between Sutton and Debo. I would go Debo, but they're both really good. Still starting. All right, let me take a quick look at this. Let me wipe this screen here. Herbert or Hurts. This one's really close. Let me pull up my quarterback rankings really quick again. I would go Herbert over Hurts, but it is really, really close. Okay. I do really like Saquon Barkley this week, guys. I cannot wait to see him get his full workload. Sterling or Debo, you can't bench Debo. In almost every situation, he's the most receiving yards in the league. You just can't bench Debo Samuel. You don't want to bench Cortland Sutton either, but you can't bench Debo Samuel. You really can't. Hey, Sam, just sub. Would you start Sermon or Mike Davis? I would go with Sermon over Mike Davis. It's close, though. Quintez Cephas, Tyler Boyd, Rondo, definitely Boyd. Cephas, I love seeing Cephas questions, too. My 2 last-round picks in almost every best ball draft, Cephas and Cordero Patterson, and off to a really good start already in week 2. But, yeah, I wouldn't start him in this week. All right. Getting to one final question here. Pick one. Galladay, Chenault, Hines. I would go with you can't start Galladay this week. You really can't. Hines is not a bad option. They're going to have to dump it off a lot to the running backs today with the Colts and 2 sprained ankles for Carson Wentz. You can't start Galladay. They already said he might not play his full route tree today, even against a good matchup against the Falcons. I would probably go Hines. I actually think Hines and Chenault are really similar options, but Hines actually, to me, has a little bit better floor and ceiling. So I would go Hines. Guys, thanks for tuning in. Have a fantastic week 3. And if you haven't locked it in yet, guys, A.J. Brown over 62.5 receiving yards. I'll be back live Thursday night. Have a fantastic Sunday, guys. Absolutely crush it this week 3. And thank you so much for tuning in.